After being persuaded by her best friend Risa, Kaide reluctantly agreed to play the popular virtual reality game NewWorld Online. Before starting, Kaide named her character Maple. Since she was a beginner and easily frightened, she prioritized choosing a weapon with extremely high defense so she would not get hurt, completely ignoring other attributes like movement speed or attack power. She thought about logging out to recreate her character, but realized it would waste time, so she decided to try hunting some monsters first. By chance, another player walked by and immediately recognized Maple as a rookie, kindly directing her toward the forest to hunt. The small girl carried her dull sword and basic shield out of the city gates. Maple soon encountered her very first monster. It was an adorable rabbit, but it aggressively charged straight at her. Despite being hit, Maple did not receive a single scratch. She simply let the little rabbit play around for a while. An hour later, she was distracted by some birds in the sky and accidentally knocked the rabbit out, killing it. Maple felt so sorry for the little creature that she completely ignored the system notification, congratulating her on reaching level 2, walking away feeling depressed and guilty. She really did not mean to kill it. However, when she opened her status board, Maple discovered she had received 5 stat points. Having no idea what else to upgrade besides defense, she put all her points into her vitality stat just because she did not want to feel pain. Maple continued her journey. Suddenly, a giant bee flew straight toward her. She thought it was just playing, but it quickly dropped poison on her shoulder, causing her health to slowly decrease. She realized her character could not defend against poison. Running away seemed like the best option, so she grabbed her shield and ran frantically before tripping and falling. Right then, the system announced that due to taking continuous damage, her character had developed poison resistance. Hearing this, Maple gave up on running, lay flat on the ground, and let the bee continuously sting her with poison. As expected, the longer she endured it, the higher her poison resistance leveled up until it reached immunity. Seeing the angry bee charge at her again, Maple seized the opportunity, drew her short sword, and dealt a fatal blow to its head. The bee died instantly, dropping a rare item and boosting her straight to level 8, prompting her to put all her new stat points directly into defense without a second thought. With her stats set, she relaxed on the grass to enjoy the view and fell fast asleep within seconds. Meanwhile, a strange swarm of monsters surrounded her completely, while she continued to snore, entirely unaware. Passers-by scratched their heads in confusion at the sight. She slept soundly until late afternoon when the system suddenly blared an emergency warning because her character was under attack. Startled awake, Maple panicked as she saw the monsters chewing on her. She jumped up, waved her arms wildly to chase them away, and finally breathed a sigh of relief. Regardless, her gaming experience that day left her feeling extremely satisfied. When she logged out and returned to reality, it was already late at night. The next day, she logged into the game again. Since Risa could not join yet, Maple played alone. The scenery was much busier today, with crowded streets and players wearing gorgeous equipment. Looking at her own basic starter gear, she suddenly spotted a guy in cool red armor named Kuromu. Maple immediately called out to ask where he bought such a high-quality shield. When Kuromu revealed it was custom-made by a craftsman, Maple's eyes sparkled with excitement. Seeing her innocent curiosity, Kuromu knew she was a rookie but was surprised she initiated the conversation. Keeping his promise, Kuromu guided Maple to the place where he had his shield forged. There, they met the beautiful owner Iz, a renowned craftsman in the game. Unfortunately, when Iz heard Maple wanted a super defensive shield, she told her that such a good item would cost at least 1 million gold. Meanwhile, Maple's current fortune was a mere 3,000. Very sad, Maple told herself she would have to temporarily save up. Iz and Kuromu pointed Maple toward a nearby dungeon, saying it would help her find plenty of good treasure. The monsters there were a bit strong, but with luck, she could find some great equipment. Since they got along well, they added each other as friends to chat later. Maple happily set off right away. On the way, she wondered if the Poison Dragon Labyrinth actually had a poison dragon, but felt less worried knowing she had poison resistance and healing potions. After walking for a while, she reached a cave, went inside, and saw a horde of slimes approaching. She drew her sword and fought them. After struggling for a bit, Maple managed to defeat all the slimes in the cave by herself. Before her stood a large door, which she suspected held a boss inside. Just as she thought, an extremely powerful 3-headed poison dragon appeared inside. It continuously breathed poison, causing Maple's health to drop rapidly. In this critical moment, Maple came up with a way to continuously consume healing potions. Her health kept going up and down. Right as she used her last potion, the system announced she had gained complete poison immunity. Knowing its attacks were now useless, she stood joyfully in front of the dragon. However, she could not just stand there because she had no way to fight back. The dragon grabbed her in its claws while she struggled and punched it. Out of pure frustration, Maple used her teeth and bit into it. Unexpectedly, this method worked. Instead of using physical attacks, Maple continuously ate the dragon's flesh until the enemy was entirely consumed. Thanks to this terrifying eating method, she defeated the poison dragon, jumped straight to level 18, and even received a unique eating skill. Maple was thrilled to finally have a real attack skill. Approaching the treasure chest, her joy doubled when she received a brand new outfit from her dragon-slaying victory. Naturally, she dumped all her new stat points entirely into defense. That night, Kaide excitedly told her best friend Risa about her victorious achievement. Risa was thrilled to hear it, and eagerly promised that as soon as her proficiency exams were over, they could team up and wreck the game together. Before ending the conversation, Risa reminded Kaide to study hard so her mother would not ban her from gaming too. Maple continued her monster hunting journey in the game. After fighting for a while, she gained quite a few skills. But the one she liked the most was her devouring skill. Playing alone was getting lonely, so she eagerly waited for Risa to join her. Kaide became so addicted to the game that even at school, she constantly thought about how to increase her character's skills. While she was distracted, Risa walked up and lightly tapped her head. Hearing her friend talk about getting an eating skill, Risa felt completely helpless. She never expected her best friend to become so obsessed with the game that she would talk about it non-stop during recess. But Risa could hardly wait either, wanting to finish her exams quickly so she could log in. Back home, Kaide logged in. Today was a special event day, and Maple was extremely excited. The game's mascot, Dorizu, appeared and explained the rules. The time limit was 3 hours, taking place on a specially created map. The winner would receive a special limited reward. The countdown started, and each player was placed in a separate location. Being thrown into a battlefield so soon made her nervous, and knowing her stats were not suited for major fights, Maple chose to sit down and wait, casually drawing on the ground. Suddenly, a man calling himself the White Rose Knight approached her. He tried to act charming, but quickly changed his attitude. A second later, he drew his sword and charged at her. Startled, Maple grabbed her shield to block. Unexpectedly, that natural reflex paid off. Her divine shield easily defeated the opponent, earning her first kill point. Once it was over, she calmly went back to finishing her drawing. Maple did not know 3 strong men were hiding, waiting to ambush her when she dropped her guard. Yet, the moment she capped her pen, she managed to take down all 3 attackers at once. It was unexpected that with just a shield, she could effortlessly defeat so many people, as if she had an unfair advantage. Even the audience watching was amazed, because she only used counterattacks without making any offensive moves. Ignoring the intense battle outside, Maple peacefully finished her artwork. Right then, Dorizu appeared to announce there was only 1 hour left. The temporary leaderboard called out Pain in first place, Dread in second, and Maple in third. Hearing she made the top 3, she was innocently shocked. When she realized she had become a prime target for all other players, Maple panicked and jumped up. Seeing a crowd rushing toward her, the confused Maple held tightly onto her defensive shield. The shield began releasing a massive amount of poison gas, taking down countless players. Finally, the bell rang to signal the end of the event. The final top 3 results remained unchanged. Maple successfully defended her third-place spot and was honored with a live interview on the big screen in front of thousands of people. Since it was her first time winning such a huge prize, she was so shy and timid that she stuttered through her answers. The next day, she went to school and told Risa about getting 3rd place, which left Risa completely astounded. She could not believe her ears when she heard Kaide was only level 20, specialized in shield defense, yet managed to secure a top 3 finish in the tournament. But thinking about it, her silly friend's playstyle was actually quite terrifying. Risa even worried she might not be able to match Kaide's level. When Kaide invited her to play with the same build, Risa immediately declined. She had her own preferred playstyle. If Kaide was defense, she would be a long-range magic attacker. But forming a party like that would be too boring. After some thought, Risa decided to become an evasion build, dodging enemies and nullifying their attacks. Teaming up together like that would be truly interesting. Kaide's joy doubled, knowing Risa could finally log in today. Risa's in-game name was Sally. The first thing she did was check her stats. Sally realized Maple's shield only absorbed attacks, meaning she would not gain skills unless directly hit. Previously, Maple asked Iz to make a new shield. Iz explained that crafting the white shield required white fish scales from the southern underground lake. Hearing this, Sally offered to help and go together. Maple was happy, but her zero mobility meant she could not keep up. To solve this, Sally carried her friend on her back and sprinted. Sally handled transportation, while Maple took care of monsters blocking their path. They quickly reached their destination. The two girls then focused on fishing. With Maple's slow speed, she only caught her third fish by the time Sally caught her 12th. Thanks to this, Sally reached level 6 and acquired a fishing skill. After gathering enough materials, Sally decided to challenge herself. She dove into the lake for more items and encountered a large gate. Without hesitation, Sally broke the door and swam inside. In minutes, she collected a massive amount of large fish scales. Sally swam closer and whispered to Maple about a strange cave under the lake. She suspected a huge boss was inside, but swimming down was impossible for Maple. To improve Sally's skills, they visited this cave daily. Sally practiced swimming deeper, while Maple leisurely fished and timed Sally's resurface after fighting monsters. Maple timed her, while Sally fought the cave monsters. After a fierce underwater battle utilizing all her strength, Sally finally dealt the finishing blow to the massive boss. Right after, she choked on water and fainted. Waking up on the shore, Sally lay flat, panting heavily, realizing that playing this virtual reality game was truly exhausting. Nevertheless, her effort was completely worth it as she secured her victory and claimed her first cool loot. While grinding, the two girls chatted happily over a call. Maple imagined a future where acquiring all upcoming damage effects would make her an invincible warrior. Just thinking about it made her extremely thrilled. Today, Sally and Maple decided to take a stroll up to the second floor. Since logging in, they had only rushed to complete quests without fully appreciating the scenery. Thus, they decided to walk around and enjoy the beautiful views. While wandering through the bustling shops, they came across a pair of rookie sisters happily choosing weapons. Seeing their adorable expressions, the friends felt nostalgic about their own early days in the game. After looking around, Sally invited Maple to a nearby restaurant to recharge. Looking at the menu filled with hearty dishes, Maple's eyes sparkled with pure excitement. They immediately ordered 2 delicious plates of cake to enjoy. While eating and chatting, Dredd, who placed second in the previous event, recognized Maple and greeted her. Beside him was Drag, the young man who placed 5th. These top players were amazed, never expecting a clueless rookie like Maple to secure a top 3 finish. Speaking of events, Sally checked the announcements and discovered the second event would launch late next week. This time, the system allowed players to form parties. Chatting further, even powerful players like Dredd and Drag seemed wary when mentioning Pain, the server's top player. Rumor had it he was incredibly strong and had already unlocked the second floor long ago. Hearing about such an outstanding player, Maple widened her eyes in amazement. Before politely leaving, the two men pointed the girls to a great hunting spot to find the super speed skill. Hearing about a good skill, Sally's eyes lit up with joy. She hurriedly lifted Maple onto her shoulders and sprinted straight to the designated coordinates. However, reality was not as she dreamed. As soon as they arrived, Sally was greeted by the terrifying flames of Will-o'-the-Wisps. Her timid nature took over, making her hesitate. Even though she kept muttering to reassure herself that these were just fake game ghosts, Sally's legs trembled in fear. Too frightened by the ghostly flames, the two girls ran to take temporary shelter in an abandoned house to rest. Only then did they fully understand the guy's warning about how this area might be too much for girls. During their free time, Maple searched the area and discovered a secret basement hidden right under a table. Sneaking down, they saw a man tightly tied to a chair, looking extremely pained. Feeling sorry for him, Maple tried using healing magic, but her skill was completely ineffective. Sally then used her healing skill and managed to save him a little, but due to limited mana, she could not maintain it. After struggling for a while, the man's face finally relaxed. He smiled brightly and passed away peacefully, leaving behind a mysterious item under his chair. The two girls realized Sally had accidentally completed the hidden quest to obtain the super speed skill, exactly as the two men had tipped them off. With the quest finished, before logging out, Sally insisted on taking Maple to one final destination. She brought her best friend to a place called the Endless Sunset. The scene before them was a vast field of sunflowers, bringing a strangely unique yet incredibly warm feeling. On the smooth sand, they picked up sparkling red seeds to keep as souvenirs. Both of them fully enjoyed these joyful, relaxing moments to wrap up their gaming session for the day. The next day, Maple and Sally officially stepped onto the second floor for real combat. Following the path deep into a cave, the first enemies to welcome them were a herd of aggressive wild boars. Maple skillfully raised her shield to counterattack and defeat them. Unfortunately, getting past the first stage exhausted 4 of her skill uses, leaving her with only 6 for the rest of the day. Right then, a massive bear suddenly appeared, blocking their path. Quick as a flash, Sally began chanting, casting a mirage skill to turn Maple's shield invisible. At the same time, she stepped back to buff her friend's strength and took down the bear. This was a new ultimate move Sally wanted to test out before officially entering the event. Past the minor mobs, they proceeded straight into the boss room. The final boss of this area was an incredibly huge, monstrous deer. As soon as they faced off, it attacked them frantically. Maple and Sally immediately teamed up to fight back fiercely. However, after clashing for a while, Maple unexpectedly took the full brunt of the boss's damage reflection and instantly fainted. Seeing the critical situation, Sally had to switch to fighting independently. She swiftly dashed onto the beast, dealt a critical strike, and successfully defeated the giant boss. The battle ended just as Maple groggily woke up. Realizing she had fallen asleep and missed the golden opportunity to fight the boss, she slumped her shoulders, feeling deeply disappointed. While they were feeling down, they coincidentally ran into the blacksmith Iz. Taking the chance, Maple introduced Sally to Iz. Iz announced she had finished the item Maple ordered. Seeing the brand new white shield, Maple jumped for joy and named it Snow White. Iz had thoughtfully maximized all its defensive stats, perfectly matching Maple's playstyle. To celebrate, Sally took Maple to a secret location for a feast. Sitting down, both were amazed by glasses that automatically filled with water. The food was unique, and magically, their eye and hair colors changed dynamically while they ate. Enjoying the meal, the girls nodded in awe. Despite playing for less than a month, it felt as if they had come a long way together. Sally hoped their party would achieve brilliant results in the next event. The big day finally arrived. In the crowded waiting lobby for the second event, Maple spotted Kuromu. While greeting him, they were drawn to the overwhelming presence of a guild named Flame Emperors. Leading them was an extremely powerful fire mage named Mi, who had secured 4th place in the previous event. Before the crowd could gossip further, the mascot Dorozu appeared to announce the rules. The theme was a treasure hunt. Players had to search for 300 silver medals scattered across the map. 10 silver medals could be exchanged for 1 gold medal. Most importantly, a gold medal could be traded for an exclusive skill or rare equipment after the event. Adding to the drama, the system allowed players to fight each other to steal medals. The countdown started, marking their entry into a fierce new battlefield. Maple and Sally were teleported to a beautiful landscape. Maple was thrilled for their wild adventure, determined to gather many medals. However, it was easier said than done. They walked for a long time without seeing any monsters. Sally got distracted for a moment, and when she turned around, Maple had fallen underground. Following her voice, Sally looked down a hole and saw Maple waving. She had accidentally discovered a strange underground cave. Sally quickly jumped down, and they approached a giant door. Pushing it open revealed a terrifyingly dark space. Suddenly, a boss ambushed them from the shadows. Maple reacted quickly, raising her shield to block the attack and keep Sally safe. Sally then activated her super speed, dizzying the boss, while Maple supported with poison attacks. Their teamwork successfully defeated the beast. They opened a treasure chest, claiming their first 2 silver medals, and joyfully continued their journey. Crossing various areas, they reached a land covered in white snow. Here, they unexpectedly spotted Kuromu's party. Fearing an ambush due to the event rules, Sally immediately stepped back into a defensive stance. Seeing their tension, Kuromu raised his hands to explain that his group had no intention of fighting. They were planning to enter the nearby ruins to farm, but ran into Maple's party. Unfortunately, the system only allowed one party to enter at a time. Hearing this, the kind Maple discussed it with Sally and yielded the opportunity to Kuromu. They already had medals, and Maple remembered his past help. Kuromu expressed deep gratitude and led his team inside. Strangely, as Maple and Sally turned to leave, the ruin gates automatically opened again. This confused them, as only one party was supposed to enter. Sally deduced two possibilities. Either Kuromu's team quickly grabbed the loot and left, or they were sent back to town by a powerful boss. After some thought, they decided to take a risk and entered to challenge themselves. While exploring the gloomy space, a giant creature suddenly swooped down from above. The massive wingspan of the Ice Eagle boss indicated a tough battle. The monster launched rapid attacks, but Maple sharply raised her shield to protect Sally. Exploiting a gap, Sally dashed in, but despite her relentless strikes, the eagle's health barely chipped away by 1%. During a moment of lost focus, Maple took a critical, piercing hit. They immediately changed tactics, splitting up to distract the monster. However, the boss's overwhelming power knocked Maple backward, dealing such terrifying damage that her shield broke in half. Refusing to give up, Maple stood back up. Relying on Sally, the swift rogue activated her Mirage skill to turn invisible and flank the enemy. This perfect support allowed Maple to land the decisive blow, defeating the frantic monster. The battle ended, and they breathed a sigh of relief. Thanks to protecting her friend, Maple unlocked a great Shielder exclusive skill. Before celebrating, Sally panicked seeing Maple's health at exactly 1% and hurriedly healed her. Deep inside the ruins, Maple found a giant eagle feather and stored it as a crafting material. Meanwhile, Sally claimed a treasure stash containing 5 silver medals and 2 mysterious eggs. Maple chose the green egg, while Sally took the other. Sally quickly deduced they could incubate them into combat pets. Their immediate priority was to teleport outside. Concurrently, the game administrators were pulling their hair out in shock. The silver-winged icebird boss, their unbeatable pride, had been miserably defeated by 2 players. Losing the guardian boss was bad enough, but Maple also took the rare pet eggs containing a fox and a turtle. The admins sweated profusely, fearing Maple would create bizarre playstyles that would ruin the game's balance. Back in the present, the duo remembered their main goal was to fight players for medals. Sally smiled ruthlessly, eager to test her true limits. However, their urgent task was to incubate the eggs. Sally safely descended a cliff to scout before signaling Maple. Seconds later, Maple descended in a bizarre manner that left Sally feeling helpless. Hiding in a quiet spot, they incubated the eggs. Soon, Maple's green egg hatched a baby turtle, and Sally's hatched a baby fox. Both were incredibly adorable and attached to their owners. Maple named her turtle Syrup, and Sally named her fox Oboro. While playing, Sally noticed both pets possessed cool innate skills like sleep and awaken. Seeking a spacious area for the pets to run, they headed to a sandy beach. Upon arriving, Sally's sixth sense triggered an alarm. She sensed danger, realizing another player was hiding under the trees to ambush them for medals. Before Maple could understand the situation, Sally and the hidden player dropped their guard and prepared for a fierce fight. Realizing a 2 versus 1 battle was unfavorable, Kasumi immediately chose to retreat. However, a bloodthirsty Sally sprinted after her closely. Just as the 2 experts clashed and prepared for a deadly fight, Maple suddenly appeared with an extremely bizarre landing pose. Her clumsy landing accidentally caused a tremor, making the sand collapse and swallowing all 3 deep underground. Waking up in a dark, unfamiliar place, they panicked, realizing the system had initiated an awkward trial involving cursed chains. The rules were harsh. If one of the 3 chained players died, everyone would be eliminated. With killing each other out of the question, the 3 girls reluctantly called a truce to cooperate and survive. Once settled, Kasumi, Maple, and Sally changed their attitudes, cheerfully introducing themselves and chatting. Diplomacy over, the reluctant party moved deeper to investigate. However, speedsters Sally and Kasumi rushed ahead, forgetting that Maple, with 0 mobility, was sluggishly chasing them. Consequently, Maple tripped and fell hard. The painful fall turned into luck when she accidentally grabbed a silver medal from the ground. Kasumi deduced that this area was likely a puzzle exploration dungeon. Exchanging theories, they carefully ventured further. Suddenly, Sally and Kasumi's sharp ears caught a creepy sound. A giant snail boss appeared, bizarrely lacking a health bar. More terrifyingly, these immortal monsters started crawling everywhere, blocking all corners. Knowing physical attacks were useless, Sally and Kasumi simultaneously used super speed. Grabbing Maple's arms from both sides, they dragged her away to escape. Pulled at breakneck speed, Maple could not brake and stumbled forward. Running desperately, they hopelessly realized they were cornered in a dead end. In this critical moment, Maple spotted an escape hole high on the ceiling, but it was out of reach. Desperate, Sally used all her momentum to leap upward. Just as she was about to fall, Kasumi swiftly pushed Sally higher. This perfect boost allowed Sally to grab the edge and safely pull the other two up via the chains. Surviving the ordeal, the three breathed a sigh of relief, realizing this flawless teamwork saved their lives. Maple then noticed a large gate. Pushing it open, they found a giant treasure chest waiting. Simultaneously, the evil chains vanished, marking the reluctant party's success in clearing the dungeon. Opening the chest, the loot included a shield, a staff, a spear, and skill scrolls. Since Maple was a shield defense master, the others gladly gave it to her. Kasumi took the staff and spear, while the identical skill scrolls were divided equally. 2 silver medals remained at the bottom, so Sally and Maple immediately offered one to Kasumi. To ensure fairness, everyone took something home. By the time they exited the cave, it was dusk. Kasumi bowed and apologized for her earlier hostility that got them trapped. Maple and Sally waved it off, holding no grudges, and enthusiastically offered to become friends. Afterward, the three happily said goodbye and parted ways. In the following days, Maple and Sally continued their adventure to collect event medals. While waiting idly for Sally to scout and gather medals, the clueless Maple managed to make a new friend, leaving Sally wide-eyed in surprise upon her return. This boy was Kanade, who was leisurely building sandcastles with Maple. Seeing them playing happily amidst a competitive event made Sally frown in suspicion. Understanding her guard, Kanade smiled and admitted he was only level 5. With his weak stats, he had no interest in the bloody metal scramble. His only goal was collecting rare items, like the loot he just won from a library puzzle. After getting along well, Kanade sent a friend request so they could play together after the event. As a gift for their new friendship, he generously gave them a mysterious book he had just found, serving as an important clue for this event. Although Kanade knew the answer to the puzzle, he wanted to test the girl's patience. Therefore, he simply dropped a hint to find a ruin related to secrets. Following the clue, Maple and Sally arrived at a dried-up fountain. Quick as a flash, Sally leaped into the air and executed a whirlpool skill, combining it with Maple's support from below to blast away the giant boulder blocking the water flow. Instantly, a blinding light flashed before their eyes. When they blinked, the two found themselves floating deep at the bottom of the ocean. Immediately understanding the game's mechanics, Sally and Maple took a defensive stance, mentally preparing to face a major boss. Just as expected, the guardian of this area was a giant, vicious squid. Its tentacles were incredibly tough and could not be severed, forcing the party to focus all their damage on its main body to have any effect. During the struggle, Maple came up with a highly unconventional plan to pollute the water. She immediately released maximum toxic poison, turning the entire clear ocean area into a sea of venom. Naturally, the giant squid swimming in the poison took heavy damage and gradually died. Seeing the boss evaporate, Sally stood frozen, never expecting her friend to make such a fierce battle look so effortless. After defeating the monster, they were unexpectedly teleported to a legendary, picturesque, calm sea. As the event time slipped away, Maple and Sally still had not collected a full set of silver medals. Their only remaining option was to steal from other players. However, almost everyone on the map had already recognized Maple's terrifying reputation, fleeing the moment she appeared. Therefore, Sally decided to go solo and ambush players on her own. Without Maple around, the enemies would lower their guard. In return, Maple stayed behind to perfectly protect their entire stash of medals. With the tasks divided, Sally immediately transformed into an assassin, sweeping into enemy territories. Moving at blinding speeds, her battle mode was fully activated, ready to clash and fight fiercely anytime, anywhere. Filled with fighting spirit, Sally easily took down multiple parties in a row. Meanwhile, back at the base, Maple carefree played and teased the two pets, Syrup and Oboro. Despite fighting tirelessly, Sally unluckily only managed to drop exactly 2 medals, leaving her feeling somewhat disappointed and let down by her own performance. Nevertheless, by pooling their resources, their party finally gathered the complete set of 20 medals as desired. Carrying her weapons back to the rocky cave to regroup with Maple, Sally unexpectedly ran into Kasumi. The atmosphere outside was completely chaotic, so Kasumi had to hide in the cave temporarily. Seeing her old friend, Maple happily welcomed her by releasing a massive layer of poison fog that completely sealed the cave entrance. The dense and terrifying poison barrier deterred any outside players from daring to take a single step inside. Safe inside, the three girls cheerfully played and waited for the event's closing bell to ring. The mascot Dorazu appeared, loudly announcing that any player possessing over 10 medals could choose a rare skill. Naturally, Maple and Sally's party successfully exchanged 20 silver medals for a gold medal as planned. The surprises did not end there. Right at that moment, Maple's turtle, Syrup, acquired a bizarre new skill inherited from its master, transforming into a giant, intimidating turtle. It even gained the ability to fly and hover in the sky like a hot air balloon. Witnessing this surreal sight, Kasumi and Sally could only exchange speechless, helpless glances. Due to gaming all night, Kaide was extremely exhausted the next morning, yawning constantly as she dragged her feet to school. She bumped into her best friend Risa, and they walked to school together. Seeing her friend's exhausted state, Risa advised Kaide to cut back on her gaming time. Otherwise, virtual habits from the game world would gradually invade and affect her real life. Risa's prediction came true immediately. During class, Kaide was so tired she collapsed on her desk and fell asleep. The funniest part was, while walking in the school hallway, a male student accidentally brushed past her. Out of professional habit, Kaide flinched and perfectly executed a defensive blocking motion, just like in the game. Not to be outdone, Risa herself was equally affected by the gaming curse. Thanks to grinding her evasion stats excessively, Risa became incredibly agile in real life, effortlessly dodging balls while playing sports. Kaede, on the other hand, was the exact opposite. Seeing a baseball flying straight at her face, she did not bother to dodge, instead standing still and muttering a spell. As a result, the ball ruthlessly hit her squarely in the face, causing a painful sting. After taking a long break from the game to rest her mind, Maple finally made her official return. While she was away, the game quietly updated with several hot new features. Most notably, a new type of insect called the glowing bug appeared in certain locations on the map. Catching just one would provide enough money to buy a high-end guild house outright. This was an exceptionally rare type of real estate in the town, serving as a private secret base for a party. Hearing about the house, Maple's eyes lit up with excitement, eager to grab her gear and hunt for the valuable bug immediately. However, Sally once again proved her carrying abilities by revealing that while Maple was resting, she had already successfully ambushed and caught a glowing bug herself. All they had to do now was stroll around, pick a house they liked, and move in. They thought buying a house would be easy, but after searching everywhere, there were no empty ones left to purchase. The reason was a recent booming trend of forming guilds, causing them to spring up everywhere. For instance, the Flame Emperor's Guild, led by the charismatic Me, recruited a massive number of players. Alongside them, another formidable power arose, the Order of the Holy Sword, gathering top players who won the first event. Leading this guild was Pain, who had incredibly farmed his way to level 60. Joining him were prominent leaderboard names like Dread, Drag, and the newly recruited Frederica. Undoubtedly, Pain was the undisputed #1 player in the game. While wandering around, Maple and Sally suddenly found a uniquely designed house that was still available. They happily toured it and immediately fell in love, deciding to claim it as their base. Even the pets, Syrup and Oboro, seemed highly excited. However, a spacious house with only 2 members felt quite empty and boring. So, Sally and Maple called their new friends, Kasumi and Kanade, inviting them to join the fun. Furthermore, they coincidentally ran into Kuromu and Iz on the street, so an excited Maple eagerly recruited them into her guild as well. Very quickly, Maple's party gathered all her desired members. Everyone unanimously nominated Maple as the guild master, because she was the one who recruited and united them all. Initially shy, Maple regained her composure, stood up clearly, introduced herself, and warmly welcomed everyone. The next task was choosing a cool name for the guild. Maple thought for a moment and decided on maple tree, sounding rustic and perfectly matching the giant maple tree outside their base. With the setup complete, Maple invited the whole guild for a tour around the city on their unique ride, Syrup. The sight of the entire group sitting on a giant flying turtle became Maple's signature trademark, recognized by the entire server, even though the clueless girl herself was completely unaware. Flying straight ahead, they landed at the material mine exactly as is described. Here, the group split up tasks to farm. Suddenly, a mine boss appeared to block their path. Maple immediately took the vanguard, raising her shield to draw fire and swiftly dealt with the monster so Kinnaid and Iz could safely gather materials in the back. Outside, Sally's group was highly motivated, fighting side by side to collect more items to contribute to the guildmaster. After completing the quests, the group returned and officially held the first Maple Tree Guild meeting. During the meeting, Kuromu pointed out that the game would launch the third and fourth events simultaneously on the third floor next week. With numerous tough challenges awaiting, the urgent priority was recruiting more members. Only with more people could their party's strength go far and compete fairly. As soon as Kuromu's idea was swiftly approved, Maple and Sally eagerly went out to hunt for recruits. However, on this floor, other guilds were also offering massive benefits in fierce recruitment wars. The pool of players looking for a guild was exhausted. Seeing this difficulty, Maple and Sally decided to take a step back and return to the first floor to check out the new talents. Here, by fate, Maple accidentally ran into the twin sisters from before. The two girls sat there looking depressed because every party they applied to flatly rejected them. The reason was their bizarre, unconventional playstyle, not unlike Maple when she first started playing. Seeing her past self in them, Maple eagerly approached and warmly invited the sisters. Initially, the girls were quite shy, but after being coaxed with a tea and cake session, they opened up. It turned out the sisters' unique playstyle was dumping 100% of their stat points exclusively into physical attack, completely ignoring all other stats. Analyzing this, their extremely polarized style was the perfect complementary puzzle piece for Maple's absolute defense build. If combined, Maple could easily handle defense, creating a perfectly safe space for the sisters to freely unleash damage. After chatting and realizing they clicked perfectly, the twins, May and Yui, happily agreed and officially joined Maple's Maple Tree Guild. To celebrate, Maple had Syrup fly the new recruits directly to another farming area to power level them. The destination was the boss dungeon that held so many memories from when the two friends first entered the game. This time, the combat god Sally charged straight into battle. She executed lightning-fast strikes, swiftly and stylishly taking down the boss, leaving the two younger sisters staring in absolute awe and admiration. Returning to the base, Maple clearly and enthusiastically introduced the two new faces to the guild. What amused everyone was how Maple managed to find two disciples whose unique eccentricity and clumsiness were an exact copy of herself. Looking at May and Yui, Sally could not help but sweat slightly, constantly seeing glimpses of Maple in them. She ironically thought these two sprouts might eventually develop server-breaking playstyles even more terrifying than Maple's. The next day, Maple's group set out again to level up the twin sisters, May and Yui. Before entering the cave for the new challenge, Maple handed them poison resistance potions. However, resisting poison was easy compared to running away from chasing monsters. Thanks to Maple's bizarre evasion tactics, she successfully brought all three deep into the cave where the large boss waited. May and Yui tried to support their senior, but it barely mattered, as Maple broke the record by defeating the boss in just 3 minutes and 2 seconds. Since this still did not meet their goal of under 3 seconds, the group teamed up and repeated the arduous journey, using it as endurance training for May and Yui. Thanks to this intense endurance grinding, the sisters managed to reach level 20 in just a single day. Along with this, they acquired two new skills, Invader and Destroyer. Invader required defeating the boss multiple times within a fixed time limit. Meanwhile, Destroyer allowed the player to wield two-handed weapons with only one hand. Hearing about this grinding session, everyone in the guild dropped their jaws in astonishment. It was clear that anyone who partied up with Maple would inevitably acquire bizarre skills sooner or later. Taking this opportunity, Iz generously gifted the sisters a few high-quality items to assist them in combat. Receiving the great gear, the sisters were overjoyed and deeply appreciated their senior's thoughtfulness. The next morning, as soon as she logged into the game, Maple was extremely surprised to see everyone in the guild busy running off to complete their own quest lines. Even Kuromu was preparing his equipment to set off. Seeing that he was planning to grind dungeons for some new survival skills, the kind-hearted Maple offered to lend him her turtle partner Syrup to help out. Wandering around the map for a while, Kuromu discovered an extremely mysterious hidden dungeon. Meanwhile, Kasumi was working hard on a quest to harvest materials for Iz when she accidentally stumbled upon another one of Maple's bizarre forms. It turned out to be a brand new skill called Woolly that she had accidentally acquired while playing with a flock of sheep. If this skill that puffed her up like a giant cotton ball were combined with Maple's signature widespread poison release, it was highly likely that everyone from enemies to teammates would run away. No one would dare stand near her. Because Maple accidentally released poison, completely covering herself, Kasumi was utterly helpless and could not rush in to help her trim the giant wool surrounding her. Therefore, Maple had to leave it to fate, just rolling around everywhere aimlessly. Returning to Kuromu, after infiltrating the hidden dungeon, he immediately threw himself into close combat with the gatekeeper boss. After a fierce struggle, fighting intensely against the extremely strong enemy, Kuromu's efforts were finally rewarded by the system with a set of incredibly high-quality equipment. As soon as he put on the new armor, his aura transformed into that of a completely different person, radiating an endlessly cool vibe. Today, everyone was extremely busy grinding, leaving Maple as the only one stranded with nothing to do. Feeling bored, she decided to take a solo stroll around town. While wandering, she suddenly passed by a cave and encountered an NPC giving out a quest. Although initially hesitant about getting involved in trouble, the system notification confirmed this was a chivalry quest. Her kind conscience would feel guilty if she turned a blind eye, so Maple nodded in agreement to help the NPC mother and daughter. To complete the first step, Maple had to escort the mother to a distant location to get medicine. Thanks to having her premium turtle ride syrup ready, they did not need to trek through forests and streams. They simply sat leisurely on the turtle shell flying across the sky, completely bypassing all the dangers lurking in the forest below. Finally, Maple successfully helped the mother retrieve the medicine and escorted her back safely. However, a new plot twist unfolded. After drinking the medicine, the daughter's illness worsened instead of improving. Maple's quest board updated, requiring her to continue the chain quest. This time, she had to help the mother find a magical healing ring currently lost deep under the first-floor city. While scratching her head, Maple suddenly remembered that early in the game, she had accidentally completed a quest and obtained an item exactly like this ring. Thus, thanks to pure luck from the past, Maple effortlessly completed the task without breaking a sweat. But things did not go as planned. As soon as she put the ring on her finger, the daughter suddenly went crazy, screaming and running frantically outside. Maple's task this time was to carry the mother and track down the daughter, who had dashed away and disappeared to the Temple of Darkness. Upon arriving, an evil spirit suddenly rose from the girl's body and furiously attacked them. Quick as a flash, Maple raised her shield to safely protect the mother, while simultaneously fighting back against the vicious spirits. In the midst of the tense battle, the fierce spirits suddenly vanished all at once. It turned out the holy water potion the girl drank earlier had a delayed reaction, and its purifying effect was only just taking place. The ordeal had not stopped yet, because after being purified, the girl fell into a deep coma, lying completely motionless with her eyes shut tightly. The system popped up a notification, unlocking an expanded quest named Loving Sacrifice. The requirement was for Maple to venture alone into an abandoned church and find a strange golden potion for the daughter. The exact moment she popped the golden potion's cap open, a blinding light appeared along with a goddess. The goddess proclaimed she would take responsibility for protecting the daughter from the demons. It turned out that because Maple broke the seal, this goddess was freed from captivity to descend and save the pitiful NPC. Right after receiving the goddess's blessing, the daughter finally recovered and woke up. Having wrapped up a lengthy questline, Maple received a new skill called Loving Sacrifice. Returning to the guild base, she eagerly pulled Iz's hand, asking her to custom craft a brand new, luxurious outfit that looked as gorgeous as a queen's. After dressing up, besides showing off her new look, Maple took the opportunity to demonstrate her newly acquired goddess transformation skill. In the blink of an eye, her hair changed to a radiant blonde, and a large pair of white angel wings sprouted from her back. Most importantly, this skill created a glowing halo of light, capable of providing an invincible protection shield for all teammates standing within its range. Everyone witnessing this dropped their jaws in absolute astonishment at her brand new, unconventional skill. They were all absolutely certain that with this rate of progression, defeating Maple in the future would be completely impossible. Simply standing next to her would essentially grant automatic invincibility. Accompanied by this new outfit, Maple's defense stat had skyrocketed well past the 1,000-point threshold. Meanwhile, at the headquarters of the Order of the Holy Sword, the server's top guild, led by the #1 player Pain, the atmosphere was incredibly serious. Pain and his core members were having a tense discussion. Besides keeping an eye on the Flame Emperor's guild led by me, a newly emerging name had caught his special attention that he absolutely could not ignore. Maple's Maple Tree Guild. Even veteran experts like them never expected that a rookie with such an initially foolish playstyle could become so strong in such a short time, completely breaking the game's balance. Payne concluded the meeting by directing the entire guild to focus all their efforts on investigating the Maple Tree Guild, while keeping a close eye on Maple during the upcoming third event. This was to lay a solid foundation for the crucial guild war waiting ahead. Finally, the third event was about to officially begin, and it was a highly anticipated cow hunting competition. The rules were extremely simple. Whoever collected the most cowbells would receive the greatest rewards. Right then, Iz brought the group some exciting news. She had magically transformed the pile of wool they had painstakingly collected into brand new outfits for each member. The wool outfits looked incredibly adorable, but Kasumi received a custom-tailored, form-fitting dress with extremely daring cutouts, making her blush deeply in embarrassment. Meanwhile, Kanade also received new equipment that perfectly suited his personal style. Looking at the group, everyone exuded an adorable look, except for Kuromu, who stood out like a fierce and terrifying giant among a flock of swans. The third event officially began. Although the Maple Tree Party had agreed to split up to grind quests, the nature of this event was completely incompatible with someone possessing zero mobility like Maple. Following her teammates' advice, Maple and her turtle Syrup decided to avoid the crowded areas, heading straight up a deserted mountain to hunt for cowbells. While strolling around, they suddenly slipped and fell straight down into a strange cave. Here, Maple accidentally discovered a new badge and curiously walked deeper inside. Catching her eye was the abandoned church where she had previously completed the NPC quest, but she never had the chance to explore it thoroughly. Walking around for a while, Maple encountered an extremely terrifying boss waiting in ambush. As soon as they faced off, the boss frantically attacked, using iron chains to tightly bind her entire body. Unflinching, Maple immediately deployed her woolly skill to create a thick cushion for protection. She entrusted the offensive damage to Syrup, who charged into battle. However, taking the full brunt of Syrup's power, the monster did not die. Instead, it evolved into an even more hideous form. It opened its massive snout and started spewing blazing fire, aiming to burn Maple alive. While everyone outside was busy completing their quests, completely unaware that their guildmaster had fallen into a dangerous and bizarre place, Maple was swallowed whole right into the monster's stomach within seconds. Her armor was slowly being dissolved by the stomach acid, but thanks to her absolute defense system, she did not lose a single drop of health. Backed into a corner, Maple decided to use her uniquely unorthodox ultimate move and devour the enemy alive. Even though the boss's flesh tasted incredibly sour and bitter, Maple gritted her teeth and ate the whole thing to save herself. Ultimately, this move helped her successfully defeat the evil monster from the inside and acquire a brand new skill. Back on the battlefield outside, other guilds were still working hard to find cowbells to meet their quotas. As experts predicted, after the event concluded, the Flame Emperors and the Order of the Holy Sword comfortably took the top spots on the leaderboard. This result was not surprising at all, and rumors even spread that those two prominent guilds had already moved up to the third floor together. Meeting her teammates again, Maple guiltily apologized for getting lost today and not contributing much. To make up for it, she cheerfully bragged about acquiring a new skill. Furthermore, the Maple Tree Guild still managed to win a commemorative reward to hang in their guild house, which was more than enough to make them proud. Rumor had it that the reward was a buff that increased each member's strength by 3%. The higher a person's base stats were, the more the increase would be. It sounded amazing, but it was completely invisible to Maple. Since her attack stats were at 0, multiplying them by any percentage would still result in 0. Everyone felt sorry for her, but they simply did not understand. As for Maple, she had already calculated her own path long ago. The entire guild's only task now was to focus on passing the final challenge so they could all advance to the third floor together. Entering the final stage, Maple confidently stepped up to test her strength first. She began deploying the brand new skill she just acquired, suddenly unleashing a devastating attack on the enemy. This left all the members standing behind her dropping their jaws in awe, commenting that she looked exactly like a shape-shifting monster. After overcoming the challenge, Maple's party proudly advanced to the third floor. At first glance, this place looked completely different from the familiar scenery of the first and second floors. Since they were completely new here and everything was incredibly unfamiliar, the group sat down to discuss and decided to split up to scout and explore each area. Maple took on the task of exploring solo. While happily strolling down the street, she encountered a quest-giving NPC. After kindly helping the old man, he slowly began telling her a legend. Right in the center of this city lived an entity known as the Machine God. He was the creator of flying machines and crafted everything in the world, but the mystery was that no one could understand how those machines operated. After telling exactly half the story, the old man suddenly fell silent and spoke no more. Seeing the NPC stop abruptly, Maple had no choice but to turn and leave, secretly guessing in her mind that she might have accidentally unlocked some rare quest. Putting that aside, she just wanted to quickly find and regroup with Sally's team. Riding on her flying turtle Syrup, Maple let her mind wander with the wind and almost crashed into a player riding a flying hoverboard across the street. Relieved after swiftly steering clear, Syrup continued the flight, but somehow they entered a foggy area that caused the little turtle to completely lose its sense of direction. By the time the fog cleared, the obstacle appearing right before their eyes was a giant cliff. They were about to crash into it. The thrilling emergency brake caused Maple to lose her balance, accidentally slipping and falling freely from Syrup. Fortunately, by activating her transformation defense mechanism just in time, she still managed to land safely. Opening the map to check her coordinates, Maple was shocked to discover this place was named the Graveyard of Dreams. Tiptoeing deeper inside, she saw a boss shaped like a giant machine, calling itself the Machine King. At that moment, the badge Maple had picked up earlier was suddenly sucked out and pushed straight into its body, instantly activating the machine. Maple was still standing there dazed and confused, not understanding what was going on, when the monster suddenly acted as if its circuits had shorted out and aggressively charged at her to take her life. Realizing the danger, Maple reacted sharply to block its attack, quick-wittedly thrusting her hand straight into a glowing hole on the machine's body to destroy its core mechanism. Instantly, a strange gear flew out from it, shooting backward and embedding itself directly into her chest. At the same time, the monster continuously emitted strange buzzing sounds, declaring it would pass its power to Maple before its body gradually exploded and evolved into a new, more terrifying form. Scared by the boss's transformation, Maple scrambled away to hide. While hiding, she looked down at the gear, stuck to her chest, and quickly figured out how to use it to deploy a weapon system. In the blink of an eye, Maple received a massive power boost, transforming into a completely new and highly intimidating combat machine. Armed to the teeth with firepower, Maple successfully defeated the machine monster into a pile of scrap metal with just a few basic volleys of bullets before finally breathing a sigh of relief. With everything settled, she finally had time to look at herself, leaving even Maple speechless as she wondered what kind of bizarre monstrosity she had just transformed into. Returning to the base this time, Maple delivered yet another mind-blowing dramatic scene for her entire party to witness. Everyone watched intently and was thoroughly shocked by her brand new transformation skill, which was even more unique and eccentric than her usual trademark moves. The time for the Guild War was not far away. Right now, the Order of the Holy Sword Guild was putting all their effort into grinding levels and increasing their power to prepare for the upcoming fierce battle. As for Payne, he had secretly ordered Frederica to carry out a reconnaissance mission, scouting the situation of the Maple Tree Guild, led by Maple. On this side of the front lines, Maple's group was still carefree and relaxed, taking a trip to the beach for a vacation without realizing an enemy was secretly spying on them. Everyone's swimsuits were meticulously designed and tailored by Iz herself. Furthermore, each bikini outfit was upgraded with excellent swimming skills, leaving the girls extremely satisfied and thrilled. Except for the 4 girls leisurely vacationing, all the other guild members were sweating profusely, busily preparing for the approaching Grand War. Just as they finished swimming, Sally's sharp assassin senses immediately picked up on someone's gaze secretly watching them from behind. Realizing she was exposed when Sally called her out, Frederica obediently revealed herself. Seeing a peeping Tom, Maple's group immediately blushed deep red, thinking that this girl had seen them changing clothes the entire time. This made the girls incredibly embarrassed and ashamed. However, when she recognized it was an old acquaintance, the foolish Maple immediately ignored all suspicions, waving happily and enthusiastically to greet her. On the contrary, Sally only needed a quick glance at that sneaky attitude to know immediately that Frederica was definitely sent by the Order of the Holy Sword to scout and gather intelligence on their guild. So, Sally did not hesitate to step forward, bluntly proposing a decisive duel. The bet was that the loser would have to obediently provide all their guild's information to the winner. And of course, the thing Sally was desperate to know was the internal information regarding the Flame Emperors and Payne's Order of the Holy Sword. Forced into a corner and blatantly threatened, Frederica broke into a cold sweat, only able to reluctantly nod and agree to participate. She told herself that a fair one-on-one fight was far less tragic than letting 4 people gang up on her. In that scenario, she would inevitably end up severely injured. Once the bet was settled, the two immediately teleported to another arena location to begin the duel. They left the 3 girls standing bewildered on the beach, confused and not understanding what on earth just happened. Finding herself with free time, Maple innocently invited the 2 younger sisters to wade in the water and catch fish for fun, playing around while waiting for Sally to bring back a victory. During the battle, the cunning Frederica intentionally held back her full strength. She mostly used disruptive attacks to observe and probe the limits of Sally's power and moves. Yet, right after seeing that Sally seemed to have used all her ultimate skills, Frederica immediately raised her hand to surrender. The female mage kept her promise, obediently sharing all the intelligence regarding the Flame Emperor's Guild. Watching Sally naively nod and absorb the information, Frederica smugly thought her prey had fallen into her trap. After finishing her tale, Frederica slipped away smoothly. On her way retreating, she breathed a sigh of relief, feeling lucky that Sally did not press hard. Otherwise, she would have had to use more moves and reveal her trump cards. Frederica was also complacent because she not only grasped her opponent's hidden skills but also successfully borrowed another's knife to kill by revealing information about the Flame Emperors, letting those 2 guilds seek each other out and tear each other apart. However, what Frederica could not have imagined even in her wildest dreams was that Sally was not naive or foolish at all like she thought. In reality, Sally had played along with her scheme, utilizing her top-tier acting skills to unleash completely fake moves, tricking the other girl into fully believing she had uncovered all her hidden trump cards. It was a fatal outplaying of tactics coming from Sally. After discussing tactics for a while, the time for the Grand Guild War finally arrived. The system mascot appeared and announced the rules for this event, which would drag on for 5 whole days. Guilds would be categorized into 3 groups: large, medium, and small, corresponding to different point multipliers. Naturally, Maple's Maple Tree Guild was defaulted into the small group. Each guild would be given a base to protect a precious orb inside. The rules essentially boiled down to a large-scale orb-stealing battle. Successfully defending their own orb for 6 hours would grant 1 point. Small guilds, however, received special treatment, with their points doubled to 2. If they managed to steal an enemy's orb and hold on to it tightly for 3 hours, they would earn a full 2 points. Conversely, if a guild was careless and had their orb stolen, they would immediately lose 1 point. Notably, the game featured a severe death penalty. Anyone who died 5 times would be permanently eliminated from the event. Guilds with depleted personnel would find it harder to survive. With their meager numbers, Maple's group suffered a massive disadvantage. They did not have enough manpower to split into attack and defense shifts, leading to a severe lack of resting time, as enemies could ambush them at any moment, even in the middle of the night. Most worryingly, if enemies discovered the secret that Maple's defensive skills had a limited number of uses per day, their situation would become even more dangerous. Finalizing their formation, the home defense team included Maple, Yui, Mei, and the additional support of the mage Kanade. The Vanguard attack squad consisted of the formidable trio Sally, Kasumi, and Kuromu. Meanwhile, Iz would act as logistics support, staying on standby at the base. The ultimate goal of Maple's group was to fight with everything they had to climb into the top 10. Before the event officially kicked off, The entire group threw themselves back into crazy-level grinding to upgrade their strength. The fourth event officially began, and Maple's group was teleported to a new base by the system. Just as planned, they split into two teams to execute their missions. The assassin trio of Sally, Kasumi, and Kuromu immediately approached an enemy base, launched a lightning-fast preemptive strike, and successfully stole their first orb. Afterward, Kasumi was tasked with carrying the loot back to the base for Maple to keep safe. Admiring Sally's graceful yet deadly combat style, her teammates could not help but marvel. They realized that while they already had an unorthodox monster like Maple in the guild, Sally's eccentricity and dominance were not inferior in the slightest. Right after, Sally split from the group, infiltrating the next base on her own, and smoothly swiping a second orb without a hitch. Throughout the early stages of the event, countless chaotic robberies that shook the entire server were single-handedly orchestrated by Sally. She swiftly dashed and leaped unpredictably across every path, scouring for and stealing other people's orbs to bring back. Witnessing this highly engaging and dramatic stealth battle, the audience watching from the outside became incredibly excited, gossiping and cheering enthusiastically. Sally's rampage only temporarily paused when she unluckily ran into Dread, the notorious expert from the Order of the Holy Sword. Upon making eye contact, both immediately entered a bloodthirsty stance, exuding intense killing intent and ready to fight to the death at a moment's notice. Neither was willing to yield an inch, sparking a fiercely intense close-quarters battle. Meanwhile, at the Flame Emperor's headquarters, the guild firmly believed that their only job was to set traps everywhere and leisurely wait for their leader Mi to bring back the orbs without them having to break a sweat. However, due to a single moment of carelessness, the phantom-like Sally slipped right into the core of their base and snatched their precious orb. Having the prize stolen right from under her nose, a frantic Mi chased closely behind her all the way to the forest's edge. The female mage unleashed continuous firepower, burning down a massive section of the forest, but ultimately still let Sally escape. Feeling extremely frustrated and helpless, Mi collapsed to the ground, completely shedding her usual cold and calm facade. The guildmaster sobbed loudly like a crybaby, tearfully apologizing for letting everyone down. At the same time, back at the Maple Tree base, Maple's group was facing a new obstacle. An enemy legion was plotting to encircle and attack their base to steal back their orb. Unfortunately for them, they chose the exact golden hour when all 8 formidable members of Maple's group were gathered to defend. The inevitable happened. As expected, those low-level players lacked the skill to challenge Maple's monster squad. After all, this guild was the gathering place for members possessing the most unique and unmatched skills in the entire game. The attacker's fate was undoubtedly sealed from the start. In another development, Pain of the Order of the Holy Sword was busy sweeping for orbs well into the midnight hours. With the caliber of the server's #1 player, this event was incredibly easy for him. He was so engrossed in stealing orbs from other teams that he became too lazy to even count how many he had taken. He roughly estimated it was around 20 orbs. Fighting like this was no different from grabbing a broom and sweeping the entire map clean himself. Despite his overwhelming power, deep down, Pain still had a premonition that there might be some unorthodox, tough-to-beat guild out there waiting for him. Wrapping up the first day of competition, Maple's guild had reaped incredibly satisfying initial success. After exactly 3 hours of successfully defending the orbs, they automatically returned to their origins, accumulating points into the group's total score. However, before they could celebrate, they had to face a harsh reality. Their original goal was to break into the top 10, but they were currently languishing in 17th place. Seeing their less-than-ideal ranking, Sally's fighting spirit flared up again. She quietly readied her gear and dashed out into the night to launch ambushes alone, leaving all her members stunned and bewildered. From Iz's perceptive viewpoint, she understood that Sally feared the high likelihood of a small guild like theirs being wiped out early. Therefore, Sally wanted to exhaust all her strength contributing to raising the party's rank. Otherwise, they could not compete with the major guilds. Iz only worried the girl would push herself too hard to the point of exhaustion, but she also secretly guessed Sally might have a hidden personal reason. Suddenly, the mage Kanade also volunteered to go out and hunt for orbs. He justified it by saying he had been cooped up indoors since the event started and just wanted to take a stroll to see the battlefield. Without needing a lengthy explanation, Iz immediately understood Kanade's true intentions. The boy just wanted to share and ease the heavy burden weighing on Sally's shoulders, so he made up an excuse. Finally, Kinnaid decided to unleash his true abilities after a long time hiding them. With just a few swift and precise maneuvers, he snatched their first orb and brought it back to the team. Because they had stolen so many orbs, enraged enemies were bound to come seeking revenge. Reorganizing their formation, Kuromu, Kasumi, and Iz took on the task of standing guard on the outer perimeter. Meanwhile, Maple, May, and Yui stayed behind to guard the orbs inside. On the outer perimeter, Kuromu's group was bracing themselves against countless surrounding enemies. Suddenly, just when it seemed he had been taken down on the spot by concentrated firepower, his health dropped to 0 but immediately triggered an instant survival skill, giving him a 50% chance to survive and turn the tables. Watching this scene, everyone shook their heads in awe. It seemed that after playing with Maple for so long, Kuromu had also contracted her unorthodox playstyle, completely giving up on being a normal player. As for Kasumi, she accidentally clashed with an old acquaintance. This guy had joined Mii's Flame Emperor's Guild. Still holding a grudge over his previous loss to Kasumi, he intentionally lay in ambush to challenge her and finally exact his revenge. Returning to Sally, she alone was strong enough to crush and solo multiple other parties. Grinding until her body was utterly exhausted, Sally found a quiet corner to rest with her fox Oboro and count her loot. Seeing she held a massive amount of orbs, she got up, planning her escape route back to base. Suddenly, little Oboro sniffed out danger and signaled a warning that enemies had surrounded them completely. Sally struggled desperately to slip away from the encasing soldiers, but failed. From a dark corner, the sinister voice of Frederica suddenly echoed. She had been waiting in ambush for her for a long time. The soldiers began charging at Sally to snatch back the orbs. Facing this highly critical situation, Sally only had time to send a brief message notifying everyone that she likely would not make it out alive. Pushed to the brink, Sally used the last bit of her strength to fight desperately. The moves she unleashed were completely new, leaving Frederica wide-eyed in sheer astonishment. Only when Frederica's side temporarily paused did she realize the bitter truth. It turned out Sally had faked her skills earlier to lead her on and deceive her. Despite being tricked badly, Frederica knew Sally's current stamina was nearly depleted. Frederica smiled smugly, coldly preparing for her soldiers to surround, corner, and eliminate her neatly. In that perilous moment, when it seemed Sally was about to be eliminated from the event, Maple suddenly descended straight from the sky, executing a spectacular rescue. Just seeing the demonic silhouette of Maple appear terrified Frederica to her core. Even Sally did not expect her best friend to arrive so swiftly and perfectly on time. Maple promised to explain everything to Sally later. The urgent matter now was to clean up the battlefield. Maple's area of effect attack packed terrifying power, sweeping through and causing the enemy soldiers to run for their lives in all directions. Even Frederica bolted as fast as she could, frantically trying to urgently contact her guild. However, Maple's fatal mistake in this rescue was leaving their flank exposed, leaving the sisters May and Yui to guard the base completely alone. Seizing this golden opportunity, Dread silently slipped in and charged straight inside, leaving the two sisters extremely panicked. Without giving May a single second to send a distress signal to their teammates, he coldly initiated an attack. While May and Yui struggled to fend off Dread, Kanade was outside, sprinting back as fast as he could to help. Yet, with the meager strength of two rookies, there was no way May and Yui could match a top-tier expert like Dread. Although one person alone could not do much, when the two girls combined their strength, they unexpectedly created enough power to push him back temporarily. The sisters charged forward with burning fighting spirit to counterattack, but the skill gap was simply too large. In an instant, they were struck down by Dread's sword, losing one of their lives. Just as Dread was feeling smug and thought victory was firmly in his grasp, Maple and Sally arrived right on time. Without giving the opponent a moment to rest and catch his breath, Maple immediately cast a binding magic that tightly locked Dread in place, successfully taking one life from the notorious assassin. At the same time, in another corner of the battlefield, Kasumi was still engaged in a fierce battle with her old enemy. However, she had completely outclassed him by now. After spending time with the unorthodox boss Maple, it took Kasumi only a mere few minutes to send her sworn enemy back to the respawn point once again. All the turmoil finally passed smoothly thanks to Maple's timely arrival. Their base was secured, and the party's orb was perfectly protected. On top of that, Sally and Kanade brought back dozens of looted orbs to add to their stash. At this rate, as long as they tightly defended this pile of orbs for the next 3 hours, their score would skyrocket up the ranks. By now, the demonic reputation of the Maple Tree Guild had spread far and wide, ensuring that hardly anyone would dare to show their face and attempt to steal from them. Although it was still a bit early, the entire group agreed that this was the perfect time to activate Plan B. After spending time scouting and searching, Sally had redrawn the entire topographical map and roughly pinpointed the camps of their opponents. In this phase, their tactics would be completely reversed. Instead of leaving Maple behind to defend the base, she would directly lead the vanguard to steal orbs, escorted and covered by her 2 bodyguards, May and Yui. The plan was for the group to harass and sweep through the major guilds, actively initiating battles to find a chance at claiming ultimate victory. After thoroughly assigning tasks to everyone, Sally finally breathed a sigh of relief. The very next second, she collapsed onto the floor and fell fast asleep, utterly exhausted. Now, other guilds only needed to see Maple's appearance to know that utter devastation was coming their way. Following Sally's drafted plan exactly, the monster squad set out and charged straight into the territory of the Flame Emperors. Inside their base, the members of the Flame Emperors had heard rumors that Maple was personally taking the field to flatten bases one by one. The whole group silently prayed that the unorthodox girl would not come to their place. However, speak of the devil and he shall appear. From afar, the moment the defending guards spotted the silhouette of the flying turtle syrup, they knew Maple had descended. Anyone who heard her name could not help but shiver and get goosebumps. The problem was that their leader Mi had not yet returned from farming orbs, so the subordinates left at home had to brace themselves and find every way to buy time for their guildmaster. Considering Maple's absolute defense and massive area of effect damage steadily closing in, their entire guild seemed doomed. All the sophisticated and sturdy traps they laid out were easily trampled and crushed to pieces by her like it was nothing. Out of options, they had to split up and form a barricade to protect the orb. The 2 most prominent vice captains were forced to step out and fight directly, but their attacks could not even scratch Maple. The damage dealt was completely negligible. Just as Maple's team was about to pierce through the final defense line, leader Mi finally appeared at the perfect moment. The female fire mage rushed in to shield her teammates, her fiery aura blazing as she readied herself for a life-or-death battle against Maple. The moment she arrived, Guildmaster Mi coldly unleashed a massive explosive opening attack aimed straight at Maple. Now, the 2 great rivals officially had the chance to face off in close combat after all the resounding rumors they had heard about each other. Suddenly, Maple took the full brunt of a powerful knockout blow from Mi and disappeared into the smoke, making the sisters May and Yui incredibly anxious. But to their relief, just a second later, Maple reappeared standing tall without a single scratch or drop of blood lost. She stood firm as a rock, spreading her arms wide to provide absolute protection for her 2 juniors. Seeing her preemptive strike had no effect, Mi continuously unleashed a storm of damage to push Maple away. Both sides immediately clashed, creating a highly spectacular, continuous exchange of blows. During the clash, even someone as calm as Mi stared in astonishment at the dozens of mysterious, unorthodox skills Maple used that she had never seen before. The issue was that Maple's group specialized in close-quarters sweeping, only maximizing their power in melee combat. Catching on to this weakness, Mi's side changed tactics. They intentionally unleashed long-range attacks to push them back and widen the distance, absolutely denying Maple any chance to get close. Realizing the stalemate was disadvantageous, Maple decided to preserve their forces and keep May and Yui as secret weapons for later. She called out to Syrup, ordering the flying turtle to carry the 2 sisters and escape back to the base first. Absolutely refusing to let May and Yui escape easily, Mi immediately soared into the sky to pursue them. However, Maple seized the opportunity, acting as a strict gatekeeper and successfully blocking her opponent's flight path. Stopped in her tracks, Mi had to step back, ordering her subordinates to concentrate all their firepower on Maple. They unleashed a relentless barrage of attacks, not giving her a single second to rest or catch her breath. However, the Flame Emperor's calculations were entirely wrong. They never dreamed Maple's endurance would be on such a terrifying level. Watching the enemy soldiers swarm in as thick as ants, Maple remained unfazed and immediately unleashed a combined attack with Syrup. With just one wide area sweep, the master and pet duo obliterated nearly half of Mii's forces. Despite the heavy losses, the remaining members still looked at their Flame Emperor leader with immense admiration. Their faith in Mii was absolute. No matter how arrogant or bizarre the enemy before them was, as long as Mii took action, everything would eventually be smoothly resolved. The battle reached its climax. Just when it seemed Mii's explosive firepower had successfully taken down Maple, no one expected the shield-bearing girl to reveal her true form as a monster with unbelievable survivability. Unable to break through her defense, the Flame Emperors had no choice but to show their hand, deciding to unleash their ultimate move. To buy time for Mii to step back, gather energy, and chant her spell, her subordinates risked their lives charging forward, laying out all sorts of sophisticated traps to slow down and halt the advance of the tank known as Maple. When Mii's ultimate move was finally unleashed, Maple was tightly trapped inside an extremely sturdy magical fire cage. At this point, Maple's health bar finally showed signs of wavering and decreasing. Outside, all the members of the Flame Emperors held their breath, betting their hopes that this blazing inferno strike would be enough to incinerate the incredibly durable monster known as Maple. Meanwhile, Maple was panicking inside the cage. But the funny part was, she was not panicking because she was out of options. She just really did not want others to see the bizarre, monstrous final skill she was about to use. Backed into a corner with no way out, Maple was forced to reveal her trump card, activating her final move to transform into a gigantic, highly destructive mecha weapon, leaving anyone who witnessed it utterly shocked. Mii and Maple engaged in a fiery deathmatch. Seeing Maple's crazy destructive power in her mecha form, every enemy broke into a cold sweat and stepped back in fear. Unable to win, Mii's group had to choose the escape route, ordering an urgent retreat. Unexpectedly, Maple chased them relentlessly, even locking onto targets to bombard them with airstrikes from the sky. To preserve their leader's life, Marcus and Misery decided to use their own bodies as human shields, heroically sacrificing themselves so Mii could escape. Witnessing her teammates give their all and sacrifice themselves to protect her, Mii became incredibly furious. Her impatience to avenge them made her lose all reason, frantically charging straight at Maple in a suicide attack. A terrifying explosion erupted, shaking the earth and sky, its destructive force plowing through and carving out a deep crater in the area. Yet, when the smoke and dust cleared, Maple was still standing tall, proving her unbelievable survivability. However, when Maple wandered back into the Flame Emperor's base to steal the orb, alas, it had vanished without a trace. It turned out that while the two sides were busy in the chaotic battle, Mii's remaining cunning subordinates had managed to grab the precious orb and flee. Seeing this, Mei and Yui came up with a brilliant idea. Their party would just roam around this area and conveniently steal orbs from other nearby guilds to make up for it. As for Mii, after struggling to escape Maple's clutches, she used teleportation to flee to a secret location known to no one. Here, her cold, strong woman facade crumbled, and Mii's tears flowed uncontrollably. She sat on the ground, crying loudly like a little baby due to the frustration of losing. While sobbing, she suddenly heard the footsteps of her teammates running over to find her. Startled, Mii hastily wiped her tears, putting her calm face back on as if nothing had happened. However, upon hearing their report on the casualties, Mii could no longer hold back the pent-up frustration. Tears streamed down her face again, making her so embarrassed that she had to sprint away from the spot as fast as she could. That night, after returning triumphantly, Maple bowed her head in apology to Sally for a minor incident. Except for missing out on the Flame Emperor's orb, she had accidentally stolen every single orb from all the surrounding guilds. Although the whole group had pushed themselves to the limit farming points, their current score was only barely enough to keep them securely in the top 10. In this fragile situation, the lower-ranked guilds would quickly close the gap and catch up to them. According to Sally's tactical assignment plan, tonight Iz and Kanade would take on the task of defending the base. All the remaining core members would pour out to launch a massive general offensive. The goal was for each small group to vigorously sweep through and bring back as many orbs as possible to boost the guild's points. Returning to the base after the sweep, the system update showed that the small and mid-sized guilds on the map had been wiped clean and were about to be eliminated entirely. It was time for this survival battle to enter a new, far more brutal phase. In another development, the Order of the Holy Sword was urgently discussing a plan to approach the Maple Tree Party's base. Using her sharp tactical mindset, Sally predicted a very high chance that Maple's group would be ambushed by enemies tonight. Therefore, she came up with the idea of taking all the group's orbs to find a hiding spot first to preserve their forces. However, man proposes, God disposes. The marching speed of the 4 core members led by Pain was much faster than Sally anticipated. They boldly marched right up to the door of Maple's base. At this point, there was nowhere left to run. They had to fight with everything they had. As for Pain, he was filled with intense fighting spirit, eagerly looking forward to the day he could personally clash with a famous phenomenon like Maple. Without wasting any words, the 2 most formidable factions on the server charged at each other, erupting into an incredibly fierce battle. In the first few minutes, both sides seemed evenly matched, trading blows with no clear winner in sight. But right after, a shocking turn of events occurred. Maple was suddenly hit by a continuous barrage of critical attacks from Pain. For the first time since she started playing the game, the health bar of the immortal Fortress Maple dropped heavily, leaving everyone present in utter shock and disbelief. Under Pain's frantic attacks and overwhelming power, Maple seemed completely exhausted, looking as if she could no longer hold on. Yet, in that critical life-or-death moment, she suddenly sprang up, tenaciously launching a fierce counterattack. Seeing her guildmaster's dire situation, Iz hastily ran over to assist Maple, but unfortunately, she fell into Pain's sights and had her life swiftly taken by a swing of his sword, unexpectedly logging her out. The state of the battle became more chaotic than ever, as both sides frantically engaged in close-quarters combat again. In one corner, Kuromu found himself in an extremely difficult position, struggling to attack the enemy while simultaneously acting as a human shield to protect the 2 younger sisters behind him. Meanwhile, Sally quickly reorganized their formation. She took it upon herself to stall Frederica, creating the perfect opening for Kasumi to disengage and sprint over to support Maple. Seeing its master besieged, the little fox Oboro also bravely charged into the fight. However, the weight class difference was simply too great. The little pet had barely leaped out before Drag swung his weapon, blasting it far away. At the same time, the phantom-like dread was silently closing in, gradually approaching the hiding spot of the orb that Kanade was guarding day and night. The young mage tried to exhaust all his strength to protect the orb completely, but unexpectedly, the final boss Pain suddenly appeared, dealing a clean, critical slash to him. The powerful attack caused Kanade to collapse on the spot. All the precious orbs he had been hiding dropped and scattered all over the ground, clearing all obstacles in the way. Pain turned around, locking onto his sole target and aiming straight at Maple. The strength of the server's #1 player was truly terrifying. He pressured her to the point where Maple seemed ready to give up and surrender. But no, right in her most desperate moment, she suddenly flipped her trump card, pulling out her ultimate weapon. Timing it perfectly just as he aggressively lunged in, Maple unleashed a barrage of bullets, raining frantic firepower directly onto Pain, instantly engulfing him in a direct sea of flames. Everyone thought this killer move had decided the battle's outcome, but no one could have expected that when the smoke cleared, Pain was still standing tall without any issue. He silently stood back up, swinging his sword in preparation to unleash his next devastating strike. Backed into a corner with no retreat and no skills left to defend herself, Maple only had one single way to survive: breaking her limits to transform into a giant demon and fight to the bitter end in a life-or-death struggle with Pain. Up until this very moment, Pain finally realized in shock that he had been too hasty and overconfident, forcing him to bitterly accept his defeat. Thus, Maple easily swallowed Pain's group whole, both literally and figuratively. Truly, the hard-learned lesson here was to never mess with the big boss. At this time, Iz and Kanade had also finished their respawn timers and revived. They immensely admired Maple's unparalleled strength. However, looking up at her bizarre, unstable demonic form made them cringe in terror. The cruel part was that because the system limited the transformation to exactly once per day, Maple did not want to waste its power, forcing her to drag that hideous demon lord form back home for a guild meeting. Since the group's strongest trump card was now revealed, they needed to immediately transition to the next tactical phase. Currently, the Maple Tree Guild was sitting comfortably in 6th place on the leaderboard, but the event still had 3 days left. To ensure they would not be knocked out of the top 10, Their only option was to actively disrupt the other guilds, so they could not earn any more points. After concluding their discussion, right in the dead of night, Maple's group surged forward, marching straight into every guild to pick fights. Anyone who saw Maple's giant form was utterly terrified, crying out in fear, thinking the event system had accidentally dropped some bizarre boss onto the map tonight. The audience watching outside was also completely amazed by the overwhelming combat power of Maple's team. Her group no longer cared about collecting orbs. They purely focused on slaughtering and sabotaging to deplete the other guild's scores. Viewers could only shake their heads and sigh, remarking that this girl had finally discarded her fake angelic facade to officially turn dark, becoming a demon lord sowing fear everywhere. On the other side of the front lines, Payne's group was also very frustrated by Maple's overly unorthodox playstyle. But with the class of the server's top player, even though Payne lost, he did not show any bitterness. He believed that if he had the chance in the future, he would definitely return to challenge her and make her pay back with interest. While Maple's group was enthusiastically hunting players everywhere, they coincidentally saw intense fighting breaking out in the direction of the Flame Emperor's base. So, this unruly party conveniently detoured to pick a fight there too. At that time, Mi's group was also fiercely defending their base against invading enemies. Just then, she received terrible news from her scouting team. A monster identified as Maple was looming closer, heading straight toward them. Hearing this, everyone sighed in exhaustion. After all, Kasumi alone was previously more than enough to defeat Shin from their guild. It was unimaginable now that their entire formidable squad was coming to ambush them. Despite her extreme apprehension, Leader Mi tried to calm her mind and boost her team's morale, preparing them to fight to the death. However, before the Flame Emperors could do anything, the demonic Maple stomped down right in front of Mi, freezing her in shock for a few seconds. Looking at that giant approaching monster, Mi felt incredibly frustrated and wanted to cry, but she had to grit her teeth and maintain her cool facade. Unexpectedly, Maple simply stood there and breathed fire, completely incinerating the enemies besieging Mi's group, and then left quickly. The Flame Emperors were left in utter bewilderment, completely unable to comprehend what had just happened. Upon reflection, it seemed the girl intended to help Mi's group clear out enemies, acting as an unspoken apology for stealing their orb in the previous skirmish. After escaping, Maple finally breathed a sigh of relief, muttering to herself how close she was to accidentally crushing Mi with her giant body. Afterward, the Maple Tree Guild continued their journey to wipe out other guilds. Coincidentally, they spotted Payne's group executing the exact same sweeping tactic. Seizing this chaotic moment, Sally immediately deployed their final plan. Kinnaid and Sally cast a phantom clone skill, multiplying the original Maple into 7 giant maples that spread out to fight and sweep the area effortlessly. Everyone present on the map who witnessed 7 demon lords strutting around could only shake their heads in despair. They were completely speechless at her absurd and overpowered skills. At this point, the server felt no different from a chaotic, apocalyptic wasteland. Thanks to Maple's merciless sweeping, the event that was supposed to last 5 full days concluded its results early by the 3rd day. The entire map was wiped clean, leaving only 6 guilds surviving, meaning all of them automatically made it into the top 10. According to the rules of this event, every guild in the top 10 would receive the same prestigious rewards. Therefore, the 6 surviving guilds had no reason to fight each other anymore. Because they had been engaging in intense battles for the past few days, everyone decided to sit back and relax, effectively wasting the remaining 2 days of the event. As expected, the involvement of the Maple Tree Guild was the core reason for stirring up the entire player base. Even the game's administrative board broke into a cold sweat, completely unable to predict any of Maple's unorthodox moves. The admins had considered stepping in to nerf this overpowered character to restore some balance to the game. However, upon further thought, Maple had essentially become the game's brand ambassador. She seemed to have turned into an unintentional mascot, continuously attracting countless new players who flocked to register. Because of this, the development team had no other choice but to turn a blind eye and let things play out naturally. And of course, no one dared to imagine how much more monstrous the upcoming system skills would become once they fell into Maple's hands. After days and nights of fierce combat, Kaidi's Maple Tree Guild excellently climbed to 3rd place overall. This achievement far exceeded the entire team's expectations. Thanks to this virtual reality game, the shy schoolgirl Kaide's life shifted to become more joyful, positive, and colorful. Returning to real life, Risa did not forget to advise her best friend to reduce her gaming time. Otherwise, if she got banned from playing, the Maple Tree Guild would lose their notorious guildmaster. To celebrate the brilliant success of the fourth event, the Maple Tree Guild organized a grand victory party, but it was strange and amusing. Even though it was an internal guild party, Maple carelessly and enthusiastically dragged all the rival guilds to join the fun. They were originally busy hunting monsters when Maple dragged them to the party against their will. Initially, the guests were a bit shy, but since Maple insisted, everyone agreed. Thus, without distinguishing between friend and foe, everyone raised their glasses, ate, and drank merrily while watching the game's most intense highlight reels together, closing out an event filled with laughter and complete joy. After a period of diligent gaming, Kaide finally heard breaking news. The game had officially unlocked the fourth floor. Judging by the situation, it seemed the majority of top players had already flocked up there. Both Kaide and Risa were incredibly excited, eager to log into the game to continue their journey to rank up. Very quickly, the members of Maple Tree gathered to battle the final gatekeeper boss, paving the way to the fourth floor. However, it was no difficult task when their captain took action. Maple alone was more than enough to sweep and blow the monster to pieces in the blink of an eye. After a remarkably easy victory, everyone happily walked hand in hand onto the fourth floor. The scenery here heavily featured the natural beauty of a Japanese martial arts setting, with a vibrant sky filled with wildly poetic falling cherry blossom petals. As usual, upon reaching a new floor, the Maple Tree Guild split up to scout and understand the terrain. Unexpectedly, as soon as she stepped onto the fourth floor, Sally unfortunately crossed paths with her sworn enemy, Frederica. Thinking this girl wanted another serious fight, Sally bluntly proposed a duel. As for Frederica, after being tricked regarding skills multiple times, she was now incredibly confident, boldly declaring that she only needed one strike to make Sally taste humiliation. Facing Frederica's arrogant boasting, Sally remained completely unfazed and coldly affirmed that neither she nor Maple had ever died once since the game started. That sharp statement alone was enough to convey the level of her power and class. Meanwhile, Maple had been exploring but felt the atmosphere on this fourth floor was covered in an unusually dark and gloomy gray. Suddenly, a familiar silhouette glided past. It turned out to be me, the leader of the Flame Emperors. The senior player seemed to be rushing and busy with something, so Maple unknowingly trailed behind her. However, after accidentally spying on her, Maple's honest nature made her feel incredibly guilty. She did not choose to run away, but instead tagged along to apologize. Unexpectedly, by following the trail, Maple accidentally uncovered a shocking secret about her. The normally cold senior had an obsessive, fanatical love for cats. Me looked extremely satisfied right now, revealing her true nature as she cuddled and eagerly nuzzled a litter of kittens. While deeply engrossed, Me looked up, made eye contact with Maple, and instantly froze for a few seconds. But right after, Maple also enthusiastically rushed in to cuddle the kittens alongside her senior. What Maple could never have dreamed of was that until now, everyone only saw an incredibly cool Me radiating an icy aura. Yet today, she revealed such an incredibly soft and cat-loving personality. In reality, that cool exterior was just her trying to act in character for role-playing purposes. But once she started, she had to keep it up, because that persona was already deeply trusted and admired by everyone. Since life gave her the role, she figured she might as well keep acting. Currently, only her teammate Misery knew Me's true self, and kept it a strict secret from the other members. Me confided in her while blushing deeply in embarrassment. But when she heard Maple confidently promise to keep this secret absolutely safe, Me was visibly overjoyed and grateful. After a satisfying session of cat crazing, the two strolled leisurely and happily agreed to go monster hunting together on a nice day. While walking side by side with her enemy, Me was suddenly startled when her own teammates accidentally caught them. Caught in a tough spot, Me quickly made up an excuse, claiming she was busy exchanging confidential information with Maple in her capacity as guildmaster, narrowly passing the check. After exchanging greetings, Misery and Marks politely said goodbye to Maple and left. Returning to the battle on the other side, the two great rivals, Sally and Frederica, were still fighting fiercely with no clear winner. However, the final outcome remained unchanged. Frederica once again had to swallow her bitter defeat in frustration. despite having worked hard to train several new skills. Even though she won overwhelmingly, Sally was not arrogant at all. She even tossed back a teasing remark that made the other girl furious and leave in anger. For Sally, no matter how tough or strong an opponent was, there was only one person in this world capable of defeating her. Having resolved their personal matters, the Maple Tree group gathered fully to discuss their plans. The biggest drawback of this fourth floor was its incredibly vast map size. Because of this, the members still could not explore every single corner. Even the highly experienced had to remark that conquering this floor would take a lot of time. Meanwhile, the two youngest sisters, Yui and Mei, were now traveling smarter, spending money to rent a carriage. Although it cost a fair amount, it was relaxing, and the movement speed was many times faster than walking. Sally also just caught a system announcement. The Christmas event was about to arrive, so the city's appearance would surely change to be even more magnificent soon. Hearing this, Maple loudly reminded everyone to temporarily put aside playing around and focus on grinding to level up their strength before the new event officially started. In contrast to her usual calm and aloof demeanor, after reaching an empty spot, Kasumi broke character and revealed her true personality. She was deeply infatuated with the Japanese-style scenery of this new map, becoming so thrilled that she kept hovering around and rubbing against the displayed samurai armor. However, life was not a dream. Looking at her critically depleted wallet, Kasumi had to swallow her disappointment because she had no money to buy these expensive items. While feeling sad, she suddenly remembered she still had an unfinished quest from the other day, so she quickly rushed back to that location. After a fierce, close combat struggle, Kasumi finally acquired a highly premium rare item. After inspecting the new gear, she excitedly took her sword out to test its power on monsters. But an extremely strange thing happened. The moment she drew the sword from its sheath, all her equipment suddenly transformed into a highly seductive outfit. Although blushing deeply due to this forced exposure, the situation was urgent, so she gritted her teeth and prioritized fighting the monsters. As expected, the new skin came with cosmic-level strength and beauty. She sliced through monsters like mud, but the trouble did not stop there. The price to pay for this power was that after unleashing 10 phantom blades from her combo, Kasumi's body suddenly suffered a side effect, shrinking into the form of a child. Even her developed figure turned completely flat for 10 minutes, leaving her panicked, laughing, and crying at the same time. The appointed time finally arrived. After all the guilds gathered, the mascot Dorizu appeared to explain the rules for the 6th event. The event area hid countless rare materials and limited edition Christmas-themed equipment. The time limit for everyone to search was a mere 2 days. As the countdown ended, all players were teleported one by one to a completely new location. As soon as Maple landed, she encountered a horde of ugly wooden monsters ready to fight. Without hesitation, she unleashed her predator skill, transforming into a monster, and went on a frantic rampage, sending the entire forest into chaos. Nearby, the top player Payne was also enthusiastically farming. Hearing the loud noise, he rushed over, expecting to find a massive boss. However, that terrifying boss turned out to be Maple, leaving him completely stunned and frozen in shock for a few seconds. After the initial shock passed, the two sat down in a quiet corner to chat. Maple scratched her head and explained that she only used the skill to clear out the massive number of monsters quickly. She did not realize that once she transformed into this terrifying form, she had to wait until the next day for the cooldown to reset. Not wanting to waste the activation time, Maple decided to keep this hideous form to continue grinding. Unexpectedly, Payne offered to team up with her temporarily. He even humbly stated he wanted to learn her combat methods. This made Maple blush in embarrassment, unable to believe the strongest player in the game wanted to learn from her. With just a few simple words, Payne smoothly secured a spot sitting comfortably right on top of Maple's monster head. The game administrators monitoring the cameras were utterly horrified by this sight. They held their heads in despair, thinking that with the two most overpowered forces on the server teaming up, the monsters designed for this event had absolutely no chance of survival. And it was true. Payne sat leisurely on her head giving directions, while Maple simply stomped around, easily crushing the monsters into paste. During their peaceful stroll, Payne suddenly caught a strange buzzing sound and patted Maple to stop. Looking up at the sky, they saw a massive, dense swarm of giant bees charging straight toward them. This time, Payne decided to step up and show his skills, fighting with all his might to protect her. Watching his incredibly fast sword swings, Maple could only stare in awe, secretly wondering whose speed was superior between him and Sally. Ordered to stand still, Maple was incredibly bored as Pain absorbed all the damage. However, things did not go as planned. Her giant tail suddenly slammed hard into a nearby tree, knocking down a massive beehive. Thick honey poured all over her, causing Maple to lose her orientation and collapse helplessly onto the ground. After dealing with the minor bees, the giant queen bee officially appeared. Seizing the opportunity, Pain did not hesitate to slide along Maple's honey-covered tail to gain momentum. He launched himself into the sky and delivered a perfect finishing blow to the monster. Meanwhile, in another location, Kasumi took out her weapon to test her new skill again and was once more hit by the side effect, shrinking back into the form of a child. Ironically, this humiliating transformation was witnessed directly by Shin, her sworn enemy. The young man stood frozen in confusion for a few seconds upon seeing this child version of Kasumi. Noticing that the bandages wrapped around her body were slipping off and leaving her exposed, Shin was about to tactfully remind her. Realizing she was in an incredibly awkward situation in front of her rival, Kasumi hurriedly covered herself. Her face burned bright red with such intense embarrassment and shame that she wanted to dig a hole and hide. A day passed, and night fell, signaling the end of the event's first day. The Order of the Holy Sword waited endlessly but saw no sign of their leader. Coincidentally, Dread and Drag looked up at the sky and immediately recognized the giant flying turtle belonging to Maple. To their absolute surprise, right next to that demonic player was their own captain, smiling and hitching a ride with the enemy. After being dropped off, Pain politely thanked Maple and went to regroup with his teammates. Before flying away, Maple poked her head out to remind him about what they had agreed upon earlier. The audience assumed they had set a date for a fierce duel, but it turned out to be an invitation to her base for a Christmas party. Although very reluctant, Pain had already promised, so he had to show up and join the fun. The most astonishing part was that besides the Order of the Holy Sword, the entire Flame Emperor's Guild was also present. Nominally, these three guilds were the fiercest rivals. Yet now, they managed to cast aside their grudges to sit together, cheerfully clinking glasses and feasting. The entire server had to admit that this surreal scenario could only be pulled off by a master diplomat like Maple. The most exciting part of the party finally arrived. The system gave each player a mysterious gift box, meant to be opened simultaneously on Christmas night. After a countdown, everyone opened their boxes at once. Surprisingly, inside were dazzling Christmas outfits meticulously tailored to fit each person's figure perfectly. Seeing Kasumi wearing her Christmas attire, Shin stood nearby and teasingly provoked her, saying she would look much better wearing it in her child form. This critical remark made Kasumi blush in deep embarrassment before she immediately snapped and scolded him harshly. In another corner, Pain's group of stoic men looked at the flashy, childish outfits the system had just distributed. Everyone was speechless, silently wondering if this was a malicious prank from the developers. However, upon inspecting the stats and seeing the incredible buffs attached, the whole group sighed and reluctantly put them on to blend in. The most unique case was Maple. While everyone else received beautiful and charming Christmas outfits, the developers gave her special treatment, designing a full-body reindeer suit that was incredibly bizarre. Looking at her appearance, everyone nodded in agreement, feeling that her reputation for abandoning her humanity was completely justified. Despite a slight disappointment at not wearing a pretty dress like the other girls, Maple brushed it off and accepted it. The entire group gathered around, clinking glasses in celebration, enjoying an incredibly warm and pleasant Christmas night in the virtual world. Later, Maple's group successfully teamed up for a highly coordinated battle against a monster. If they maintained this momentum, they would soon be able to advance to the 5th floor together. However, by accidentally using her new skill, Kasumi unintentionally revealed its side effect. Everyone was greatly surprised to see her, never expecting the rumored Phantom Blade skill to be like this. Seeing Kasumi's adorable form, everyone showered her with praise, making her terribly shy and embarrassed. Fortunately, Maple was not around, or she would have undoubtedly exaggerated her compliments to the extreme. Her absence was because Kaidi had caught a cold in real life and could not log into the game. After a few weeks of resting and recovering, Maple finally returned, better than ever. By the time Maple logged in, the other members had already explored almost the entire newly unlocked 5th floor. Although feeling a bit regretful, Maple promised to grind hard, absolutely determined not to be left behind. Sally suddenly sent an apologetic message, saying she was busy today and could not help her rank up. Outwardly, Maple cheerfully assured her it was fine, but just a few minutes later, she became gloomy and sad at the thought of playing all alone. After feeling disappointed for a while, Maple decided to set off on her own exploration. She teleported to a gloomy and dark location. Standing before a massive gate, she was certain this was the final boss stage to advance to the 5th floor and join everyone. After entering, they immediately clashed in battle. It seemed Maple's mecha armor was completely ineffective against this 5th floor boss, making her feel somewhat cautious and worried. Even her turtle syrup was knocked flat after taking a direct hit from it. Her normal attacks were entirely useless, making Maple doubt reality and wonder how everyone else had managed to defeat this guy. Left with no other options, she had to unleash her ultimate move. Because this skill had a painful side effect, she had never used it before. But backed into this corner, Maple closed her eyes and activated it. As expected, the boss took the full brunt of the firepower and was quickly defeated. In exchange, Maple lost a significant amount of health due to activating a self-damaging skill. The battle ended, and as she approached the boss to check on it, he suddenly sprang up and laughed loudly. He congratulated Maple for successfully defeating him and enthusiastically invited her inside to share a meal. At that moment, the system announced that Maple had acquired a new skill called Pandemonium. Only then did she realize that this place was not the path to the 5th floor at all, but rather a tower for a rare quest. Because she went to the wrong place, Maple had wasted a lot of time. Seeing her sitting gloomily in a corner, the Order of the Holy Sword coincidentally passed by and came over to greet her. After chatting, they learned that the reason Maple was stuck and had not reached the 5th floor was due to an illness in real life. Everyone nodded in understanding, realizing why they had not seen the giant turtle hovering in the 5th floor's sky lately. Coincidentally, Frederica's group had come down to the 4th floor to help rookies level up and advance to the 5th floor. Since it was on their way, they offered to let Maple join their party. With the impenetrable Fortress Maple present, the new recruits could freely unleash as many attacks as they wanted, without fear of being hurt by monsters. This was because they had an absolute guardian angel carrying the team from behind. Because they were rookies, these girls had a fiercely aggressive attitude, but their actual abilities were severely lacking. When Frederica asked if Maple intended to fight at all, she immediately summoned an entire army of demons to fight for her, leaving everyone staring in utter astonishment. Very quickly, and without wasting any effort, Maple successfully carried the whole group straight up to the 5th floor. It turned out the only reason she had fallen behind earlier was simply that she took the wrong path, not because she was weak. After saying goodbye, Maple went to the 5th floor. The area was covered in thick clouds. There, she ran into May and Yui, who had just been defeated by a powerful lightning monster and sent back to the starting point. With Maple acting as their shield, the sisters fought freely and quickly defeated the beast. The reward was a lightning attack skill, but since it was magic-based, the physically focused sisters could not use it. Instead, Maple received a unique skill that allowed her to summon a throne while riding syrup. Sitting on it automatically restored her health and sealed the skills of all surrounding enemies. Suddenly, a system notification announced that the 6th floor would unlock next week, leaving them extremely excited. To clear the final obstacle of the 5th floor, Maple's group used their flawless teamwork as usual. With their invincible lineup, Sally confidently declared they would crush any monster that appeared. However, her attitude completely flipped the moment they stepped onto the 6th floor. The map was shrouded in a pitch-black sky and a creepy atmosphere resembling the depths of hell. Knowing Sally was terrified of ghosts, her teammates looked at her in concern. Sally's face turned pale, and she trembled uncontrollably, though she stubbornly insisted she was fine. The moment she logged out, she screamed in terror, refusing to enter the game again because she was deeply traumatized by horror themes. She decided to only farm on the lower floors until the 7th floor opened. After hearing Risa's confession, Kinnaid had no choice but to respect her decision and wait until she changed her mind before deciding what to do next. Although Risa was determined not to play on that terrifying floor, her expression changed when she read a developer announcement. The 6th floor hid a skill that could push her agility and acceleration to the absolute limit. Giving it up would be a massive waste. However, every time she thought about logging in, the chilling scenery made her hesitate. Ultimately, reason conquered her fear, and Sally decided to blindfold herself to navigate back to the base. Arriving exhausted, her friends were surprised she returned to the 6th floor. Kanade astutely deduced that there must be an item she desperately wanted to brave such terror. Having found the coordinates for the new skill, Sally was too scared to go alone. Luckily, Maple gently offered to accompany her. Grateful, Sally profusely thanked Maple. Maple summoned Syrup to fly them to the destination, while Sally kept her eyes shut tight. When a wandering ghost playfully bit her hand, she panicked and ran frantically around Syrup's shell. They finally landed safely in front of a haunted mansion. To encourage her friend, Maple comforted her, but to ensure Sally actually faced her fears, she simply pushed her inside. Upon entering, Maple was thrilled by the vast space, meaning they had to search every room. Sally timidly tried to escape, but Maple firmly dragged her along. While walking, a pale hand suddenly patted Sally's head, making her scream and hug Maple tightly. Thanks to Maple's firepower, the ghostly hands were quickly blasted full of holes. Suddenly, they were teleported to two completely different locations. Sally was left all alone, while Maple was surrounded by monsters trying to scare her. Panicking, Sally tried to log out, but the function was disabled. Hearing her friend's distant screams, Maple immediately blasted through the walls to find her. Checking the map, Maple realized the terrified Sally was running frantically, leaving a tangled trail throughout the mansion. Meanwhile, Sally was chased so closely by ghostly hands, she nearly lost her mind. She hid inside a wardrobe, trembling as ghosts knocked on the door. She wrapped herself tightly in a blanket. To move faster, Maple had to transform into her monster form to catch up. Ironically, when Maple opened the wardrobe, her hideous form terrified Sally even more than the ghosts. Maple quickly used her throne skill to create a halo, forcing the ghosts to retreat. Only then did Sally break down crying. Once she calmed down, a strange event caused the ghosts to leave entirely. Another group of players had entered the mansion, drawing the monsters away. Seizing this golden opportunity, Sally carried Maple on her back and sprinted outside, finally breathing a sigh of relief. Right then, pale hands appeared, hugged Sally once, and vanished. Thanks to that heart-stopping moment, Sally acquired the hidden poltergeist skill. The reward required surviving in the house for a set time. Having finished exploring, Sally finally logged out, feeling it was her most exhausting gaming experience ever. In reality, Risa was home alone, got spooked by the familiar atmosphere, and immediately called Kaede for comfort. The next day, Maple returned to the haunted mansion alone. With her zero mobility, she sluggishly followed two ghost girls hovering ahead, accidentally stepping right into their trap. The ghosts gloated, but were instantly frozen in terror when Maple transformed from a bizarre slime monster. Scared out of their wits, the ghosts surrendered, granting Maple a new skill. Unknowingly, she had accidentally triggered a critical game bug the developers missed. Back at the base, Maple excitedly showed Sally her new gear, which allowed the user to control 10 items telekinetically. She also presented a special item she had farmed just for Sally. Sally eagerly tried it, but turned pale and returned it instantly, claiming she could not use it. Maple was confused until she tested it herself and realized why. At that moment, Me from the Flame Emperors messaged Maple, inviting her to hunt a boss. Me wanted to borrow Maple's absolute defense, because her massive firepower was currently ineffective against the elusive ghost monsters on the 6th floor. Hordes of ghosts continuously attacked them, but with Maple standing firm like a shield, Me had ample time to chant and unleash devastating fire spells. Afterward, they visited an in-game cafe. Me casually asked why Sally had been missing lately. Maple honestly explained that the horror environment was Sally's ultimate weakness, so she had been grinding on the 5th floor. They would reunite for the next event. Me admired their close bond, confessing that she only felt truly relaxed when adventuring alone with Maple, away from her guild. Understanding her senior's struggle with maintaining a cold leader persona, Maple listened as Me vented her frustrations. Me regretted acting so cool initially, leading to her current suffering. Maple warmly offered to go hunting and hang out more often to help her relax. Just then, they ran into Frederica and Kasumi walking together, an incredibly rare duo. It turned out Frederica was itching for a fight and missed Sally, so she went to the Maple Tree Guild. Not finding Sally, she challenged Kasumi instead, only to be completely beaten. The four girls sat and chatted cheerfully like a true party. After a while, Frederica left, and Kasumi logged out to rest, leaving me and Maple to continue their private conversation. Time passed, and the seventh event officially commenced. Durazu flew in to explain the rules. The battlefield was divided into various difficulty zones, allowing players to choose locations suiting their strength. The map consisted of separate instances for each party, ensuring no encounters or PvP with other teams. The event lasted 5 real-life days, allowing players to log out and rest. Rewards were distributed based on the chosen difficulty. Since it was a major event, Sally finally showed up. Maple was thrilled to reunite with her best friend. The two girls confidently promised to choose the highest difficulty. Teleported to a towering, majestic tower, they excitedly stepped into the first floor, designed as a standard exploration dungeon. To clear the path quickly, Maple used her woolly skill, turning into a giant cotton ball to roll deep inside with Sally. Soon, a horde of monsters blocked their way, but they were no match for the Demon Lord. Maple simply crushed them all with her giant body. Suddenly, the ground shook violently as a massive dragon boss erupted from below. Sally sprinted forward to launch lightning-fast strikes, while Maple supported her. During the tense fight, Maple employed her unorthodox mindset, diving straight into the monster's mouth to let it swallow her. When it prepared to breathe fire, she dealt a fatal blow from the inside, defeating the giant beast in a bizarre and filthy manner. The administrators watching the cameras nearly fainted in shock. The dragon was designed with extremely tough outer armor, and the admins intentionally placed its weak spot deep inside its mouth. They wanted players to time their attacks perfectly when the dragon inhaled to breathe fire. They never anticipated Maple would literally jump into its mouth to deal damage. Furious at her logic-defying playstyle, the admins swore the second-floor monster would be much tougher. The second floor looked like a massive library, exuding an academic vibe. Playing along, Maple equipped glasses to look like a bookworm. Soon, rumbling noises echoed, and the space was engulfed by a tornado of flying pages. Tens of thousands of pages merged into a giant magic book boss. Maple quickly charged forward to attack. Rushing in proved to be a mistake. The magic book suddenly shot out countless iron chains from all directions, tightly binding Maple and pulling her back. Worse, the chain's magic completely sealed away all her skills, making them vanish entirely. The shameless boss even stole her unorthodox skills to attack them. Stripped of her trump cards, Sally had to carry the fight. With miraculous reflexes, she masterfully dodged the boss's storm of attacks. Meanwhile, the sealed Maple stood frozen, taking hits as the boss gnawed on her head using her own skills. Fortunately, her durable armor absorbed the damage perfectly. Seeing her friend take 0 damage, Sally focused entirely on the fight. Meanwhile, half of Maple's body was neatly swallowed by the very skill she created. Resting inside the enemy's mouth, Maple was amazed by the detailed design of the skill's interior. She pondered what to do, considering eating it alive like usual. However, she cringed at the thought of eating scrap paper. Before she could decide, Sally landed a critical blow, blasting the monster apart. The battle ended with a stark contrast. Sally was sweating from the intense fight, while Maple casually strolled out of the boss's mouth looking completely unbothered. With the boss defeated, Maple's sealed skills were restored. The developers once again clutched their heads in despair, seeing Maple's team conquer the floor. They consoled themselves that at least they created a monster that hard-countered Maple, forgetting it simply became a punching bag for Sally's evasion practice. Without resting, they faced the third floor, a deadly land filled with roaring fire pillars. This treacherous terrain dealt continuous burn damage to everything. Even the heavily armored Maple took damage, forcing Sally to be extremely careful. From the boiling lava, a highly intimidating boss emerged. Sally's agile attacks barely scratched it, so they summoned Syrup. Miraculously, Syrup's attack affected the monster, but immediately after, the fiery hellscape shattered and transformed into a freezing, silent wasteland. Adapting to the newly ice elemental boss, Maple activated her demon transformation. True to her nature, she lunged forward and bit the boss's head clean off, crunching loudly. The admins watching were terrified and furious that her complex transformations bypassed their mechanics once again. The next day, the two girls continued their event journey after maintaining their momentum through the first 3 floors. True to Sally's hardcore playstyle, She was absolutely determined to clear the highest floor faster than anyone else. Stepping onto the fourth floor, while gracefully surfing on the water's surface, the duo unexpectedly encountered a giant sea turtle boss blocking their path. Instead of being intimidated, Maple was incredibly excited. Her eyes sparkled as she turned to Sally, eagerly asking if she wanted to climb onto the sea turtle's back for a ride. Meanwhile, in the control room, the game administrators were working frantically, scrambling to fix the bugs from the third-floor boss. Amidst their exhaustion, they were shocked when they checked the cameras. Sally and Maple were lying flat, casually relaxing on the back of the giant sea turtle. Although slightly stunned, the admins managed to regain their confidence, reasoning that sitting all the way up on the shell meant Maple's group could not possibly deal enough damage to defeat this defense-oriented boss. However, their relief was short-lived. Just 1 second later, the giant sea turtle shattered into pieces at the hands of the two girls. The admins clutched their heads in absolute terror, dreading this utterly illogical power. In another location, the party consisting of Kasumi, Kanade, the twin sisters Mei and Yui, along with Kuromu and Iz, were flawlessly coordinating their efforts to overcome countless challenges. While grinding, the group could not help but feel anxious, wondering how the duo of Maple and Sally was faring in their battles. However, they could never have imagined the earth-shattering scene unfolding elsewhere. Maple had literally taken Sally into her monster mouth, holding her best friend securely while charging fiercely into battle against hordes of monsters. When she was finally spat out, Sally stood completely frozen with mixed emotions, feeling entirely helpless and speechless, her whole body drenched in her best friend's saliva. Switching over to Payne's Order of the Holy Sword, Frederica was swiftly casting spells to fight monsters, but her expression was downcast and devoid of any joy. Seeing this, Drag immediately saw through her, realizing she was acting depressed simply because she missed fighting with Sally. As the group fought and complained about having too few members to clear the mobs efficiently, the area's massive boss suddenly appeared with a loud rumble. Dropping their previous casual demeanor, Payne's group instantly switched to professional mode, unleashing their full power to battle the boss. Payne's ambition was crystal clear. His group aimed to be the first party to complete the event and claim the absolute top position. Back with Mii's group, the Flame Emperors were currently struggling to navigate through a blinding blizzard. Marks had been straining his eyes to detect and disarm traps for a long distance, leaving him utterly exhausted and unable to walk any further. Noticing this, the thoughtful leader Mii suggested the whole team stop to rest and recover their strength. Although she appeared calm on the outside, Mii's mind was distracted during the break, silently thinking about Maple and constantly wondering how far that unorthodox girl had progressed. After their coordinated teamwork, Mii sent Maple a checking-in message, not forgetting to invite her out for coffee once the event concluded. Meanwhile, Sally received a boastful message from Frederica, who shamelessly texted just to brag that their group had already reached the 8th floor. Hearing this news, Maple was fired up, wanting to speed up their conquest immediately so they would not be left behind. However, the composed Kuromu advised against it, suggesting that the team should take it easy and rest for the day. Iz curiously asked how far Maple and Sally had explored. Maple honestly replied that they had cleared the 6th floor and were preparing to head straight to the 9th. But Iz was mostly puzzled about one thing. How did a coward like Sally manage to get through that terrifying floor? Reminded of her trauma, Sally helplessly sighed and told Iz to drop the subject. In another development, Mii's group steadily advanced and finally set foot on the 7th floor, displaying flawless teamwork to defeat the gatekeeper. After resting, Maple's group resumed their journey. They encountered a monster that used a trunk to spray sleep-inducing mist. Iz had carefully brewed sleep resistance potions beforehand, but unfortunately forgot to give Maple's team enough supplies. Consequently, upon being hit by the mist, Maple collapsed into a deep slumber, completely oblivious to the world. Sally tried everything to shake her awake, but failed, standing by helplessly. Unlike Sally's panic, the game administrators watching were overjoyed that the unstoppable tank Maple was finally countered by their sleep spell. However, their joy was short-lived as Sally solo carried the team, swiftly defeating the boss to protect her sleeping friend. Waking up and continuing their ascent, Sally and Maple clashed with the next floor's monster. Without hesitation, Maple transformed and rammed straight into the opponent. Unexpectedly, the monster unleashed a powerful knockback, sending Maple flying backward, but luckily Sally quickly pulled her back in time. Immediately after, Sally utilized her super speed to close in on the target. After a strenuous battle, they finally defeated the monster and successfully reached the 10th floor. Coincidentally, both me and Payne's groups had also excellently arrived at this finish line. Although the administrators were somewhat bitter that their meticulously designed tower was conquered so easily, they were also highly anticipating the climax. This was the moment for a showdown between their strongest created boss and the server's top players, promising a truly spectacular and evenly matched battle. Stepping onto the 10th floor, the final boss was already waiting. Sally and Maple did not hesitate, eagerly charging forward. However, just a second later, Maple was ruthlessly sent flying by its attack. This monster not only possessed blinding speed, but also had the ability to unleash continuous combo attacks, making it unbearable for Maple to withstand. To reduce the opponent's power, Sally decided to find a way to limit the boss's movement speed. The plan was to concentrate all their maximum firepower the moment it was forced to stop. However, once entering its combat state, the boss revealed no openings whatsoever. Maple perfectly timed her charge to ram into it, but she was still easily swatted away. Left with no choice, the two had to split their formation, each taking on a role to pressure the enemy. Sally moved unpredictably, seeking a chance to strike from behind when it was distracted. Even the little turtle Syrup, summoned into battle, unluckily took a massive amount of damage from the boss. Feeling cornered, Sally understood her teammate's intention and automatically backed away to give Maple space to unleash her self-destruct ultimate move. After successfully trapping the boss, Maple activated her body to explode. Just when they thought this sacrificial strike had concluded the final act, the monster emerged from the smoke, rising once again. Seeing her friend exhausted and in danger, Sally flew into a rage, frantically charging straight in to deliver a critical finishing blow. She completely destroyed the monster and secured her best friend's safety. Finally, the two of them fully conquered the event. According to the results announced by the system, the first team to finish was Payne's group, followed by Guildmaster Mee's party, and finishing in third place was Maple's team. Despite intentionally setting a high difficulty, the administrative board nodded in admiration at the players' spectacular efforts. Thanks to their achievements, the top three parties were rewarded by the system with silver medals and extremely valuable new skills. Sally luckily unlocked a skill to manipulate water. As for Maple, because she had absorbed so much attack damage this time, the thoughtful system granted her the unbreakable shield skill so she could withstand even more hits. While they were chatting cheerfully, Kuromu's party also completed the challenge and returned to regroup. The sisters Mei and Yui ran over excitedly to deliver breaking news. After the 7th event concluded, the system would officially unlock the 7th floor. The two girls eagerly wanted to gather everyone to quickly sweep the 6th floor boss so they could advance to the new floor. However, for Sally, returning to that terrifying 6th floor was still a very sensitive issue. As the mood dipped, Maple loudly announced she had found an incredible way to help her completely overcome her fear of ghosts. Everyone assumed it was some normal psychological method, until they saw Sally gritting her teeth, sitting huddled right inside the mouth of Maple's giant monster form to explore. That bizarre sight froze the entire Maple Tree group, shocking their souls as they stared at each other, utterly speechless. After a long wait, the 7th floor officially unlocked, and the most highly anticipated feature was the ability to tame monsters as companions. However, not all field monsters could become allies. Tameable monsters would have a special mark. There were various ways to tame them, such as defeating them to turn hostility into affection, giving them specific items, or completing quests. The ring introduced by Dorozu was the bonding ring that allowed players to perform the taming process. But one ring could only tame a single monster. An additional special detail was that in the upcoming 8th event, owning a tamed monster would give players an advantage. After hearing Dorozu's instructions, Maple's group decided their goal this time would be turning monsters into allies to prepare for the 8th event. Everyone fully agreed and was eager to find new companions. Sally suggested that if they faced difficulties, the group should discuss and team up. Kasumi thought they needed to scout the other floors first, now that the 7th floor was open, in case there were any changes. With that said, the group split up to gather information. Since Maple already had Syrup, she merely tagged along to protect Mei and Yui as they searched for their new companions. While walking, the sisters encountered a pair of incredibly adorable bear monsters. Falling in love at first sight, all three chased after them. However, with their slow speed, they could not catch up and lost track of the two bears. After some thought, Maple temporarily paused the search and returned to ask Iz if she had any useful items. Unexpectedly, they arrived right when Iz finished crafting 3 extremely cute outfit sets. According to the senior crafter, the 3 equipment sets were not only adorable but would also significantly increase their movement speed stats. Compared to the base level of the 7th floor, it might not be enough, but if combined with an agility boosting potion, it would work. Before finishing her sentence, Iz realized she was out of potions and the raw materials to make them. When Maple asked where to harvest more, Iz pointed her to the sea. Thus, Maple volunteered to head out and gather the materials for Iz's potions. May and Yui wanted to join, but Maple declined, telling the sisters to continue exploring the 7th floor first. Meanwhile, Kasumi was facing countless small monsters advancing toward her. As she had investigated, tameable monsters were strictly limited to the 7th floor. After conversing with an old frog NPC, she arrived at the location he indicated. To find a special entity among them, she was forced to put her skills to the test. May and Yui took the initiative to enter an enemy cave to fight. Indeed, with their new equipment, the sisters were even stronger. Their strikes caused the earth and sky to tremble, making other players think a powerful monster was nearby. In reality, it was just 2 little bunnies with extraordinary strength. Although they were much stronger, the sisters were still preoccupied with the 2 adorable bears. Speak of the devil, the twin bear monsters suddenly appeared in the bushes. The sisters were thrilled and determined to catch them this time. Following the glowing footprints, they discovered the 2 baby bears chained by a tree monster. May and Yui immediately wanted to charge in and rescue them, but they accidentally tripped and had their legs ensnared by the monster's roots. On her end, Maple was leisurely searching for materials for Iz, but she did not forget to relax and watch the sparkling dolphins swimming in the sea. Maple had no idea that the sisters May and Yui had just been defeated by that monster. Maple gathered a fair amount of materials and was about to return to base when suddenly a mass of tentacles rose from the sea, grabbed her, and dragged her straight into the ocean. Fortunately, she transformed in time, or she would have been eliminated. Just when she thought she was safe, the tentacles suddenly lashed out, wrapping tightly around her neck and pulling her under in an instant. When she woke up, she found herself lying inside that wriggling mess. Even her atrocity form had been forcefully deactivated for the rest of the day. Before she could process her situation, the tentacles wrapped around her legs and yanked her backward. After some struggle, it successfully swallowed her whole once more. Unlike everyone else, Kasumi chose to return to the 6th floor to explore any changes. She was fiercely fighting a large horde of monsters using her new skill. For Kasumi, this skill would be absolutely perfect if it were not for the shrinking side effect. Meanwhile, May and Yui were repeatedly defeated by the ancient tree monster without being able to damage it. They had no choice but to return and disappointingly tell everyone what happened. Kasumi felt guilty because she had been quite busy lately and could not tag along to help the 2 girls. It was rare to see Kasumi return in her small child form and chat with May and Yui. Iz was incredibly delighted by this adorable atmosphere and placed a refreshing glass of ice cream on the table for Kasumi, making her look even cuter as she blushed. Iz also wondered where Maple had gone since she had not returned yet. She had no idea the girl was facing a major problem. Maple was continuously dragged deeper by the tentacles. She did not even know if this was the deepest part yet. As if on cue, the disgusting tentacles rose from the water again. Maple tried her best to defend, but it was useless. She once again had to endure being pulled down and swallowed deeper. Today, Kasumi encountered a monster with a paralyzing ultimate move that left her immobilized, resulting in her elimination and returning to the starting point. May and Yui were similarly knocked back by their monster. Here, Kasumi, May, and Yui coincidentally bumped into each other. Over on her side, Maple was struggling just as much, constantly being swallowed from one section to another. Ultimately, feeling she could not afford to be picky, she closed her eyes and decided to just eat it. Although the tentacles looked utterly disgusting, taking one bite revealed a surprisingly delicious flavor. She vigorously devoured them until the monster's health bar plummeted drastically, forcing it to spit Maple out and kick her far away. But this time, the roles reversed, and the monster became the one being hunted. It was devoured relentlessly, unable to react in time. As for Kasumi, After failing multiple times against a giant snake, she suddenly thought of a new strike and bet everything on a final attempt. Naturally, Kasumi's effort paid off, and she successfully defeated the large snake. Afterward, she tried to remain calm and walked forward. Before her was a snake monster that she had selected to tame. Kasumi nervously walked up and knelt down, hoping it would agree to bond with her. Fortunately, after much struggle and hardship, she found a new companion who accepted her. The sisters Mei and Yui, after being kicked back to the starting line multiple times, grew resilient and successfully took down the large ancient tree monster to rescue the two baby brown bears. As the two bear monsters fell, the sisters caught them and excitedly hugged the soft, fluffy creatures, overjoyed to have tamed them. Maple was still busy, enjoying her premium octopus feast when it vanished. It seemed this was her most delicious meal yet. Not only did she get to eat well, but she also received a new skill, though she did not understand what it was. At the maple tree base, Mei, Yui, and Kasumi now had their own pets. Kanade also had his own plan, leaving only Iz and Kuromu without a new direction. Just as Mei and Yui returned, Iz finished crafting new equipment sets for their two pets, making all four look incredibly adorable. Mei's pet was named Tsukimi, while Yui's was named Yukimi. Kasumi's snake pet was named Haku. Maple returned home right at this moment, and when everyone looked at her, they were startled, as she always brought back bizarre things whenever she went out. This time, it was a grotesque, wriggling tentacle arm, and even one of her eyes had changed color. Sally, walking by, was so shocked she was completely speechless. Syrup and Oboro seemed quite fascinated by Maple's squirming spiral tentacle arm. Currently, only 3 members lacked companions. Kanade figured he would just choose a useful pet. Kuromu prioritized a type with strong recovery abilities. As for Iz, she wanted a pet with crafting abilities like hers, assuming they would be categorized differently from combat types. They felt fortunate that Maple and Sally had formed a bond with their pets right from the start and still coordinated perfectly. With that said, everyone said goodbye and split up to search for their new companions. Even though Kanade had searched through a series of monsters in the library, he still did not know where to begin. He roughly memorized player characters and NPCs. He casually strolled to an abandoned house filled with books. After taking a quick look around, he pretended to leave. However, a second later, he stepped back inside and astutely noticed that the arrangement of the books had changed. When he touched them, a strange entity quickly popped out. At this moment, a system notification appeared detailing the completion conditions for a monster event quest named Copy Mirror. Thanks to this, Kanade found a new search objective. However, upon venturing into a deep cave covered in crystals, the reflections showed his own image. Glancing around to find anomalies, he instantly spotted one reflection that was out of frame. The discovered monster melted and quickly jumped to another spot. Kanade realized this would take considerably more time than he anticipated. After a strenuous battle, he finally captured it. To turn it into a companion, he needed to hold it and activate 50 different types of skills and magic. Kanade immediately complied, and shortly after, the orb transformed into a ring, symbolizing the quest's completion. As expected, the orb's stat information was stronger than he thought. Placing the orb on the ground, Kana decided to name it So and began testing its mimicry skill. Although its skill power would only be half of his own, he figured its true strength lay elsewhere, yet to be discovered. Meanwhile, Iz was reviewing information on monsters suitable for a crafter class like herself. Her eyes accidentally caught the details of a recently discovered spirit-type monster, which left an impression. Immediately, Iz headed to the blacksmith's place. There, she received 3 new challenges, delivering 3 specified items in a fully enhanced state with designated abilities attached. The blacksmith handed Iz a crafting recipe book filled entirely with items she had never seen before. The blacksmith also hinted that the spirit monster had a very temperamental personality. Although borrowing their power could produce excellent crafted goods, a worthy master had to meet certain conditions. Hearing this, Iz accepted the quest and set off on her search. However, without forming a party to accompany her, it seemed the journey would be a bit difficult. Suddenly, while walking, Iz bumped into Maple and me, who were on their way to level up. Seeing Iz looking sad, they asked what was wrong. Iz explained her situation, saying she was searching for a monster to become her support companion. Hearing this, the two offered to go along and help her, figuring that tackling difficult stages would serve as good leveling practice anyway. The first destination they arrived at was a volcano located far from the city. Maple was about to ride Syrup as usual, but Mii offered to help this time. Mii then summoned her newly acquired companion, Ignis, for the two to admire. Ignis also had the ability to grow giant, just like Syrup, and its movement speed was quite fast, quickly bringing them to the volcano. The three of them ventured deep into the mountain cave. Iz was responsible for gathering her needed materials, while the task of guarding against monsters was left to the two powerhouses, Maple and Mii. Just as they spoke, a horde of monsters swarmed in, forcing the two to attack continuously, while Iz leisurely harvested precious materials. The monsters facing Mii and Maple were wiped out in seconds. Iz collected all the necessary materials and gifted them newly crafted potions. As expected from high-quality custom items, just a small amount made Mii feel her energy overflowing like never before. Their relaxing moment did not last long before they faced a massive force rising from beneath the sea of fire. Thanks to this, Maple had the chance to unleash her newly acquired wriggling tentacle skill, leaving Mii completely stunned. Iz supported from behind, boosting Mii's magical power, while Mii rode Ignis to dodge the boss's attacks. Very quickly, Mii finished off the monster in an incredibly stylish manner. However, her main concern right now was where Maple got those tentacles. Maple just chuckled awkwardly, saying it was exactly what she wanted to show off. Mii was amazed that Maple's strength kept growing and silently resolved to find a way to counter her. Mii realized that not only Maple, but every member of the Maple Tree Guild was growing stronger by the day, something she had now witnessed firsthand. After finishing the search, the three continued their journey to complete Iz's extremely long list of materials. Iz was incredibly grateful for their help. Meanwhile, Kuromu was following the map alone to find his own companion. While walking, he discovered a deep cave that seemed to have horror elements. Having traveled a long way, he figured he would definitely bond with a strong monster that matched his efforts. However, he thought that bonding with a horror monster would make him feel very guilty towards Sally. Suddenly, a group of ghosts approached from the front. Kuromu unleashed attacks to defeat them all, but carelessly took a slash from behind. Having played alongside Maple, Kuromu's strength was equally bizarre, granting him the ability to revive. He figured repeatedly dying and reviving was no different from being a zombie. Kuromu approached the boss room and painstakingly defeated a horde of large monsters entirely on his own. Sweating profusely after the battle, he could only hope to receive some great treasure. Opening the chest, he knew he struck gold. Digging further for something better, he found a ring and tried it on without much thought. Unexpectedly, the tamed monster bound to this ring had a bizarre shape and suddenly charged right at him. After Iz fully harvested the materials requested by the blacksmith, he handed her a ring and teleported her to a beautiful sea of flowers. Iz stepped onto the magic platform and put on the ring. A glowing light, identified as a spirit, appeared before her. According to the blacksmith, the spirit's abilities would vary depending on the location. Iz happily greeted the spirit and gave it the name Faye. Returning to the Maple Tree base, the members had fully gathered to show off their new companions. Unlike Iz and Kanade, who had incredibly adorable friends, Kuromu brought along a monster that anyone could guess would scare Sally out of her wits. Unexpectedly, Kuromu's monster named Necro had the ability to transform into solid armor on his body, leaving everyone in awe of its sheer coolness. The two best friends, Maple and Sally, were leisurely eating cake and drinking tea, not knowing what to do today, when trouble suddenly kicked the door in. As usual, Frederica came right to their doorstep solely to challenge them to a duel. Even though she lost every single time, she never learned her lesson. It seemed Frederica was more smug this time, because she also had a powerful support companion, just like Sally. After pacing around the house, Sally reluctantly accepted the duel as always. Shortly after teleporting, Sally aggressively charged forward. Seeing her intense, murderous gaze terrified Frederica. Consequently, just like usual, before Frederica could even launch an attack, she was utterly and humiliatingly defeated. Maple had only just said goodbye a few seconds ago, when the two returned from their fight at the speed of light. Frederica was still unyielding, complaining that Sally's bloodlust felt far more intense today than usual. She had gone out of her way to introduce her companion, yet before she could even summon it to say hello, she was blasted back. Time after time, it seemed Sally did not want to let Frederica introduce her companion. Fearing Frederica would use a horror monster to scare her, Sally wanted to end the fight quickly and send her packing. Unexpectedly, when Frederica summoned her pet, it was nothing like Sally's terrifying thoughts. Her pet was just a chubby little bird named Notes. Fortunately, it was not a ghost monster, or Sally would have run away instantly. Frederica stated she had no reason to tame a ghost monster just to scare Sally, as cuteness was still her priority. Suddenly, Dorozu appeared to announce the upcoming 8th event. This event would be divided into a preliminary round and a main round. The preliminaries would be individual survival battles. Survival time and the number of defeated monsters would be converted into points, and based on the players' rankings in the preliminaries, tickets to the main round would be decided. Naturally, higher rankings meant better rewards. Because it was a solo competition, players with tamed beasts would have an advantage. It felt very similar to the first individual ranking event. Seeing Sally and Maple chatting excitedly, Frederica interrupted and begged for one more match. Just then, Guildmaster Payne sent a message warning her not to reveal too many cards to Sally. Slightly disappointed, she had to head home, promising to show Sally the true strength of Notes later. Sally secretly guessed that Frederica's Notes might be a buffing and debuffing type. Compared to May and Yui's two bears, it did not seem like an attacker. Maple felt that, judging by appearances, Notes was probably closer to Iz's spirit companion. Chatting for a while, they did not know what to do since everyone else was not back yet. Therefore, Maple suggested exploring the 7th floor, strictly aiming for sightseeing. Suddenly, Sally came up with a unique idea to ride on the back of a horse. They wandered everywhere, enjoying the beautiful atmosphere. Suddenly, Sally lost sight of her friend, only hearing her voice without seeing her. Checking the tracker, she saw Maple was nearby and found that she had transformed into a sheep. Furthermore, a massive flock of sheep was carrying her along. Not wanting to play alone, Maple pulled Sally inside to relax together. But suddenly, the sheep changed pace and sprinted at blinding speed, causing the two to roll around dizzily. When they finally stopped, the world was still spinning. Sally jumped out and slashed the wool away to rescue her friend. Dying of thirst, Maple headed toward a stream. There, she locked eyes with the flock of sheep. Seeing her, they panicked and ran frantically, knocking her into the water. Luckily, Sally fished her out, or she would have drowned. Suddenly, Sally spotted a strange light beneath the stream. Syrup appeared out of nowhere, diving down to fetch the object for Maple. Checking the gemstone's information, they learned it was one of 3 white keys that could open a specific door. This meant there were 2 others just like it. Sally pondered for a moment and realized the anomaly. The sheep flock had brought them here for a reason. While exploring, they decided to check for any moving monsters. They set off together, combining sightseeing with the search for the remaining 2 keys. Sally pulled out the map of the 7th floor, having kept it because she knew it would be useful for an exploration event. They returned to ask Canaday, as he was an expert in this field. It was the right move, as Canaday gave them useful information, and they set out with Syrup. Maple and Sally searched around and encountered a giant monster similar to the one from the 2nd event. Maple immediately had Syrup bind it and launched a relentless barrage of attacks. Unable to withstand the assault, the monster's health bar plummeted rapidly. Sally stood aside, thinking to herself that if Maple fought against people, she would truly pity her opponents. After finishing the monster, a gemstone dropped from it. It was the 2nd green key they needed. Next, the 2 set off to find the final key. This area was entirely different, engulfed in fierce tornadoes that could blow everything away. Right after speaking, a large boulder was carried by the wind toward them. Maple took the full brunt of the rock and was sent flying. Just as the wind stopped, another tornado followed. This tornado summoned a rather strong-looking monster. Before Maple could prepare, she was hit by another boulder. Sally tried to get as close as possible to strike. Before she could coordinate, Maple appeared with a top-tier new skill. Although it looked bizarre, Sally did not want to sit still and charged in to join her best friend. The 2 battered the monster until it exploded. Finally, they collected the last gemstone. All that was left was to bring them to the ruins Kanade pointed out. Placing the 3 stones in the correct positions activated a magic circle, teleporting both to a new landscape. Syrup and Obaro seemed very excited, running and jumping everywhere. This place looked like a town of rare monsters they had never seen before. The 2 strolled around the area together. Following the path, they arrived at a very solemn-looking spring pool. Obaro and Syrup kept wiggling, begging to swim. so the girls let the two little ones play for a bit. Strangely, after soaking for a while, both pets turned a golden color, prompting an anxious Maple and Sally to pick them up. Unexpectedly, that golden color evolved the little ones into an incredibly adorable new appearance. Returning to the base to tell everyone, they were all amazed by this fascinating evolution. It seemed that after evolving, the pets also gained new special skills. Seeing Syrup looking bigger and more stylish today made Maple extremely proud. Feeling that Syrup and Oboro had grown much stronger, Maple suggested everyone should evolve their pets too. However, none of them had ever encountered events or challenges like Maple and Sally did. Hearing this, May thought that perhaps a specific level or bond with the pet was required to trigger such challenges. Besides, the two had been with Syrup and Oboro for a long time. Hearing this, Maple and Sally loved their little pets even more and felt full of pride. In contrast to Maple's joy, the game administrative board outside was scratching their heads in frustration because she had discovered more minor bugs. Moreover, guildmasters had acquired high-tier monsters for themselves, leaving the admins with no choice but to use monsters to fight back. Feeling overwhelmed with work, the developers wished they could sprout tentacles like Maple to make their jobs easier. The next day, Maple brought Syrup out to test its new power. Their lively commotion accidentally led them to cross paths with Me's group. Noticing Syrup looked different, Me's group was curious. Maple almost blurted out crucial information to her rivals, but luckily covered her mouth just in time. Me's group implicitly understood that Syrup had leveled up, leading to a friendly chat. Maple then asked about their side. Shin spoke up, intending to show Maple his companion. Shin's comrade was a cool eagle named Wen. Misery had a kitten named Belle, perfectly matching her style. Marks owned a frog companion named Clear. After the introductions, they wished each other well and promised to be worthy opponents in the upcoming event. Finally, the 8th event arrived. Dorozu took on the task of explaining the rules as usual. This event was divided into 2 rounds. The preliminaries were basically survival battles, where survival time and the number of defeated monsters would be converted into points, determining the difficulty level players could choose in the main round. Defeating monsters would also trigger special mechanics, making this event quite interesting. Although players could freely cooperate or hinder each other, only the one delivering the final blow would earn points. After Dorozu left, the Maple Tree Guild set a goal for the whole team to increase their levels to win the preliminaries. Before the event started, every member and their companions grinded hard to secure the highest rankings. As the event began, individuals were teleported to different locations. Full of fighting spirit, Maple set out to find monsters. Unexpectedly, after just a few steps, she found one and successfully eliminated her first monster, followed by other unfortunate creatures. However, Maple's weakness was her extremely slow movement speed, causing her to miss a few monsters. Suddenly checking her stats, she was shocked. The special mechanic Dorozu mentioned was affecting her. Currently, she had a monster-repelling buff, meaning they fled the moment they saw her face. Walking for a bit, Maple noticed a strange object. She poked it with her short sword, causing it to release a scent. Monsters inhaling it were immediately summoned. She was truly lucky. Love came knocking without her even looking. Maple only needed to stand still and unleash her power to destroy dozens of monsters. Meanwhile, the sisters May and Yui separated to fight for the first time. May was doing perfectly fine fighting alongside her companion. Suddenly, she ran into a group of arrogant men who came to tease her. Thinking she was an easy target, the men misjudged her. May immediately ordered the giant Tsukimi to charge, knocking the men away and sending each to their doom with a single claw swipe. Yui arrived just in time with Yukimi. Yui wanted to show May that their unorthodox senior, Maple, was being ganged up on by a horde of monsters, so they planned to assist her. They thought Maple was exhausted from struggling against the mobs, but upon arriving, they saw their senior completely crushing the area. If they did not quietly slip away, they would surely become the next victims. As for she was busy creating traps with Faye. She had previously notified the members about the trap locations, so she just sat in a tree waiting for other opponents to step in and get eliminated. On his end, Kinnaid encountered formidable opponents Drag and Dread. Despite this, he did not surrender, choosing to take the risk and fight, but a 2-on-1 battle was simply a losing game. The two men thought they had eliminated Kanade, unaware he had been hiding all along, knowing it would be foolish to face them head-on. Fortunately, Su's mimicry and cloning abilities prevented him from sacrificing himself. He admitted they were truly strong, but promised he would not be defeated so easily next time. Elsewhere, an unsuspecting player wandered into Kasumi's illusion trap without realizing it. Quickly, before he could even see her face, Kasumi executed a beautiful strike. Partly thanks to Haku's assistance, they coordinated perfectly to take down a fair number of enemies. After finishing their fights, everyone coincidentally met up to chat. Only Maple stood in one place, like a dungeon boss waiting for prey. While Maple was calculating how to scout, a giant jaw suddenly swallowed her whole. Meanwhile, Sally stumbled upon a rare sight: two rival guildmasters clashing. All she had to do was hide and gauge their strength, enjoying the good show. The evenly matched battle between the players and their pets was intensely tense when Maple's howling echoed out of nowhere. It was a bizarre sight. She had turned into a cotton ball and was caught in the jaws of a giant crocodile. Yet, she was howling in joyful satisfaction, playfully passing right through their battlefield. Seeing this, everyone froze helplessly, losing all mood to fight, and agreed to rematch next time. Maple seemed overjoyed, as if riding a thrill ride. Sensing something was wrong, Sally climbed onto the crocodile's head to check on her. Maple then recounted the story of how she was swallowed by the crocodile, how she played with it, and that she could even use it to fight. After the preliminary round concluded, the entire Maple Tree Guild secured excellent high rankings to advance to the main round, so they gathered to celebrate. Finally, the main round of the 8th event was about to begin. The time limit was 3 in-game days for players challenging the highest difficulty. Surviving until the end would grant 5 silver medals. Defeating strong monsters or finding hidden items would also reward medals. Notably, the collected medals would be shared among all party members. This meant splitting up to farm medals would be more efficient than staying together. Additionally, during the event, super strong monsters would appear at various times. Unlike previous events, a countdown timer was displayed for players this time. After explaining the rules, Dorizu started the countdown. Everyone was teleported to the same location. It seemed no other players were around when 2 massive monsters suddenly erupted from the ground. The members immediately took their battle positions. Due to choosing the highest difficulty, the monsters could not be defeated in a single hit. Thus, the members and their companions teamed up, successfully taking down the first 2 monsters. However, Yui felt her power was visibly stronger. Kanade chuckled mischievously and summoned another Yui. It turned out his Su had borrowed her attack power. Su's skill was copying appearances and abilities to help defeat monsters, effectively doubling their power. But when Sally checked, no medals had dropped. Monsters of that size were merely grunts, and medals would not be easy to find. The Maple Tree Guild regrouped to discuss their goal. Each person needed to earn 10 medals to exchange for rare skills and items. Surviving until the end would grant 5, meaning the guild only needed to farm the remaining 5. First, they divided into 2 smaller teams based on abilities and synergy for support, which was safer than exploring individually. Maple's team included Sally, May, and Yui, while the remaining 4 automatically formed another party. The 2 teams would split up and regroup to fight when massive monsters appeared. Kasumi got to experience relaxing on Haku's back, much like Maple's style. Maple's team prioritized suspicious locations they had marked during the preliminaries. They arrived at the swamp as planned. The area had not changed much, except for an increase in smaller monsters. After strategizing, they climbed onto Syrup to fly across the swamp. Suddenly, upon landing, they were teleported to a different underground location. Here, they encountered a rather large monster. With Maple providing absolute defense from behind, the juniors simply had to swing their hammers. Suddenly, they felt something strange. Maple's health had dropped slightly. May and Yui looked down and saw they were stuck in the mud. Luckily, Sally slashed it away to save them. They had to summon Syrup to fly higher and create distance to observe. Unexpectedly, the mud multiplied after respawning. In the nick of time, May and Yui brought out the trump card they had trained for: aerial attacks. The 2 continuously hurled fireballs at the ground, giving the monsters no chance to react. Just like that, they successfully eradicated them and earned their first medal. Meanwhile, Kasumi's team also arrived at their marked location. Touching a teleportation magic circle, they were sent to a completely poetic place. However, a barrage of traps soon attacked them. Fortunately, Kanade's So transformed into a protective shield. Kuromu guessed it was a ninja-type monster that would not reveal itself easily. They could only defend and observe their surroundings. Iz seized the opportunity to show off her talent by crafting atomic bombs, stringing wires to detonate them simultaneously. She warned members to stay in the safe zone before pulling the trigger. Thick smoke engulfed the area. Kanade used his skill to emit light, exposing the enemy's shadow. Kasumi and Kuromu sharply closed in and delivered a fatal strike, forcing the monster to drop the second medal for Maple Tree. Though successful, it took longer than expected. Iz suggested they regroup because stronger monsters would appear at night. True to their word, the two teams regrouped and advanced deep into a dungeon. Observing the area, they felt it was perfectly suited to become a base for the entire guild. They decided to renovate it. Kanade and Iz took charge of setting traps for absolute defense. With little time left, they shouted in motivation and worked together. However, Maple was the only one who did not know what to do since the place was quite spacious. So, she deployed poison screens at every possible entrance, creating multiple traps designed so the poison would not spread inside. She sacrificed her throne skill, using her adorable cats to guard the seats. Finished with her task, Maple went to check on her teammates, but accidentally stepped on a deployed explosive trap, triggering a massive blast. Having just caused a mess, Maple felt guilty about ruining everyone's hard work. However, the very next second, she discovered the cats she set up had all been caught in the poison screen. Now, absolutely no one could pass through. Upon returning to the base, Iz had transformed it into a massive, top-tier stronghold. She had even set up a series of defensive cannons for absolute protection. When Kuromu's group entered, they were shocked by her formidable setup. They pitied any monster that wandered in, as it would surely be blown to pieces. To warn unfortunate players from wandering in, Sally placed a warning sign outside. With this, aside from monsters who could not read, no player would be crazy enough to enter. Once the defensive lines were roughly set, all they had to do was sit and wait for the strongest monster to visit. As the timer hit 0, an earthquake struck. However, after a brief tremor, they heard nothing more and assumed the monster had died from the traps. But Sally worried the monster might be playing dead to ambush them, so the two best friends suggested checking outside. As expected, a fierce monster appeared upon stepping out, startled them, but a second later, they were disappointed because no strong monster would look that weak. It turned out to be just a normal monster desperately trying to survive, but failing. Stepping further outside, they saw quite a few good materials dropped. They felt that if it was only this level, setting the traps again would be easy. This method gave the guild plenty of materials while allowing them to relax, as they only needed to set traps and wait. Seeing they had spare time, Maple invited everyone to play cards with her. They could relax because a series of traps were already doing the work. Their idleness made the game administrators even busier. They had to monitor and rebalance the game's order to increase the difficulty. Currently, the Maple Tree Guild was only 3 medals short of completing their mission. Suddenly, the morning sky was engulfed in darkness. The map lost its signal, leaving them confused about what bizarre event would happen next. But luckily, all 8 members were together. A bright magic circle suddenly appeared beneath their feet, instantly teleporting them to a different location. Only then did they realize the developers had cheated, separating their members into isolated areas to fend for themselves. Sally was not too worried, trusting her teammates, though slightly concerned for Mei and Yui. Sally continued fighting, but the sheer number of monsters was too much for her to handle alone. Suddenly, an unexpected person appeared to lend a hand. It was none other than Frederica, but they paused the banter. The two teamed up to clear the monsters first. As they say, 2 heads are better than 1. Once the monsters were dealt with, Frederica suggested they cooperate in combat. After all, Payne's group was quite far from her. Sally was surprised how Frederica knew her teammates' locations since the map was disabled. Frederica revealed she knew thanks to her own unique skill. Faced with this awkward situation, the sworn enemies reluctantly formed a brand new party. At that moment, they spotted fireworks in the sky. Seeing them, Sally immediately knew it was her teammates. Maple had crafted them by tying bombs to bugs to make them explode like fireworks. That was the signature signal of the Maple Tree Guild. Sally headed toward the fireworks to regroup. Meanwhile, Maple was enthusiastically creating signals for the others. However, while making the final, massive firework, a monster suddenly stepped on her head, causing her to panic, lose her balance, and free fall. But she landed safely right onto Ignis, Mii's pet. Mii recounted everything she had encountered, noting her party had already lost a few members. Mii handed Maple a map, whispering that it was an item crafted by Marks. Holding it would reveal each other's locations. With that, Mii said goodbye and left. She did not forget to hope they would not be enemies the next time they met. Meanwhile, another reluctant party was formed between Iz and Marks. Thanks to his frog's invisibility skill, they escaped a dangerous situation. It was unexpected that two support players from different guilds were blown together by the developers. If a boss appeared, they would both be doomed. As for Kuromu, he bumped into Misery, and they cooperated to fight monsters. It seemed they should have met sooner. A support player and a high defense player made a perfect combo. Just then, Mii arrived to lend a hand, and they cleared the monsters. Kuromu asked Mii if she had seen his teammates, and Mii replied she had just seen Maple, witnessing her doing bizarre things as usual. Taking the chance, Kuromu offered to tag along with the two beauties. While exploring alone in such a vast area, finding other players cooperating was a rare sight. Misery figured their teammates might have been teleported near the Maple Tree members too. Seeing Kuromu's compatible combat style, the two girls agreed to let him join. Regarding the dedicated support team of Marks and Iz, despite being separated from their guilds, they fought normally. The combination of Marks' custom traps and Iz's giant cannons worked flawlessly, helping them defeat their first boss. Kuromu spotted the situation and immediately recognized Iz's handiwork. Following the direction, they found Marks as expected. Initially worried for their support specialists, they were thrilled to see them successfully defeat the boss and earn a medal. Another special event was the reunion of the odd couple, Shin and Kasumi. Shin once again had the luck of admiring Kasumi's adorable shrunken form, complimenting her cuteness and making her blush profusely. Suddenly, Shin saw Mii's group flying toward them and waved happily. He even lifted Kasumi onto his shoulders to wave together. Kanade had tagged along to protect Mei and Yui, forming a party with Drag, whom he had faced before. Without Maple's protection, Mei and Yui could not attack without defensive support, so they hid in a tree while the two men handled things. Unexpectedly during the fight, they encountered Sally and Frederica walking together. So many different guilds were meeting up. Elsewhere, Pain and Dread also met up. It felt lucky that the main round was not a PvP battle, allowing them this chance to cooperate across guilds. Sally seemed to have an idea. She approached Pain's group to share it. Consequently, members from 3 different guilds gathered in one place. Sally's idea was to gather all players to join forces and crush the monsters. Everyone was in unanimous agreement. This was the first time since the game started that players from different guilds interacted and united like this. The administrators were initially smug about scattering the guild members to face stronger monsters. But seeing multiple guilds grouping up on the monitors left them stunned. Since it was the 3 strongest guilds, trying to stop them now was too late. The admins had never worked so hard. Despite disabling the map and separating the players, they had united as if fighting against the developers. At the base, Marks crafted a large map projection to help them monitor, adjust traps, and check monster strength. Having spent so much time with the Maple Tree Guild, Frederica had learned their relaxing ways and casually sipped tea. Suddenly, the live screen showed a large horde of monsters entering, only to be gradually wiped out by their traps. To repay the favor of using the base, Pain and Mii volunteered to scout outside. The 2 strongest leaders finally had a chance to fight alongside each other against the arrogant monsters. However, their intense fighting accidentally destroyed the tracking cameras Marks painstakingly built, leaving everyone blind to the outside world. Reinstalling them would take a lot of time. With no other choice, they had to fight directly. Mii and Pain felt staying inside was useless. They needed to go out and gather more medals. To prevent being scattered again, they formed new parties. The Eastern team consisted of Mei, Yui, Marks, and Dread. The Western team included Pain, Misery, Iz, and Kanade. The Southern team comprised Drag, Shin, Kuromu, and Kasumi. Finally, the Northern team was made of Sally, Maple, Mii, and Frederica. The remaining members were tasked with ensuring the base's absolute safety. It was truly a fascinating and highly anticipated cooperative survival game. Although heading south, Maple was quite worried for the base defenders. But considering the countless traps set, she felt they were well protected. Little did she know, the defenders felt too idle and wanted to repay Maple's kindness by joining the front lines. Unexpectedly, as soon as they ran out, they were badly beaten by monsters and forced back. They really did not know how to enjoy the easy life. On their end, May and Yui were protected by Dread and Marks. Seeing the skills of the two men, the girls watched them with admiration along the way. No matter what, the girls' bizarre, sparkling gazes made Marks sigh, realizing they were definitely Maple Tree members. Finally, they reached the boss door. This time, attacking was up to May and Yui. Entering, the four faced an electric fish monster. Marks and Dread cleared the path for the sisters to swing their hammers. With this rhythmic coordination, they achieved a beautiful victory with a critical strike from Dread. They successfully collected their medals. Dread turned to encourage Marks, giving him the courage to fight further. Payne's team was thrilled to hear Dread's group acquired new medals. They arrived at the location Sally indicated. Opening the door, they were teleported straight to the boss room, skipping the maze. The monster could summon minions and had long-range attacks, so they resorted to their pre-planned tactics. Thanks to their seamless teamwork, they secured a medal very early. Payne suggested conquering a few more dungeons, as the four of them could easily clear any number. Kasumi, Shin, and Drag found themselves in a sandy desert. Shin used a skill to check for nearby monsters. Although he sensed something unusual, they advanced to investigate. Before them lay a dungeon entrance with reptile monsters waiting below. Shin used an unorthodox method learned from Maple, creating a staircase for them to cross. Invisible to the naked eye, a monster lay hidden beneath the sand mountain they stood on. Kasumi identified the boss among the mobs. United, they fought off the endless blocking monsters. When only one remained, Shin and Kasumi launched a synchronized attack, beautifully taking down the beast. Maple was equally busy. Her area was a battlefield due to the enthusiastic girls. Spotting what looked like a dungeon entrance, Maple feared armor-piercing monsters. She decided to fly straight inside in her current form for safety. Hanging onto Maple, everyone braced themselves. In 3 seconds, they bizarrely crashed from one world into the next. Unexpectedly, they encountered a fake Maple. Frederica hastily attacked it. If Mii had not saved her, she would have died. Seeing its strength, Maple used atrocity to transform, but panicked when the monster's attacks pierced her armor. Sally rushed to seal its movement so Maple could attack, but the skill was deflected. Just when it seemed Maple was crushed, she reappeared with her wriggling tentacle arm, shocking Frederica. The four grouped up, supporting each other to end the monster's life. After completing their missions, the teams returned to the base. Everyone succeeded, especially the base defenders, who reported a smooth operation after sneaking out and getting beaten. They still claimed they never left and defended the base. Thanks to their top-tier plan, they collected numerous medals. The players were thrilled, but the game administrators were devastated. Most of the medals had been taken by them. The admins sighed, wondering if these kids ever rested, constantly being so energetic. With the developers' utmost effort, if the players earned more medals on the third day, the admins would definitely have to work overtime. To avoid this, they promised to unleash a massive trump card to greet the players. The third day arrived. The gates Maple's group had seen were now everywhere, releasing extremely ferocious monsters. If that horde swarmed the base, survival would be impossible. To prevent them from entering, everyone rushed out to eliminate them one by one. Fully gathered, they worked together to clean the map. However, overwhelmed by numbers, they had to retreat and find a suitable area to defend until time ran out. The core element of this event was that the last survivors would win. The map was shrinking, but they unanimously decided to survive together until the end. First, they safely set up defensive traps. Suddenly, Kanade noticed something strange ahead. This was the announced monster buff period. No one knew what would appear next. As expected, the developers accelerated the release of their trump card to fight the players. It was 100 meters tall and ferocious, looking exactly like a fake Maple. Even with Maple present, the monster's immense power wiped out half the players. With the map shrinking and nowhere to run before the event ended, they had to find a way to deal with the giant monster. Everyone split into assault squads. According to the plan, Maple's team would lure the monster. Sally observed that its glowing spot was its weak point. They split up to whittle down its health. The main goal was survival, so they would retreat if in danger. Kuromu took a hit, causing his health to plummet. However, his extraordinary revival ability allowed him to protect the two sisters at all costs. Mei and Yui confidently delivered loving hammer strikes to the monster. Kasumi and Sally continuously launched deadly slashes. Maple and Kanade combined to create countless fake maples to swarm and devour the monster. Iz handled healing, boosting their strength. Everyone played their part in perfect synchronization, determined to survive to the last breath. Suddenly, the monster turned to retreat and heal, shocking everyone. Sally and Maple were still on it. Maple unexpectedly cast a magic spell, shooting straight at its wing. She figured attacking the wing would make it crash. Realizing this brilliant plan, Sally joined forces with Maple. Their combined attacks on its wing caused it to fall, sending both girls into a free fall as well. The fallen monster turned and opened its mouth for a divine blast, but Maple shielded Sally. Luckily, they both survived. Mei and Pain arrived just in time. Frederica led her guild over, and everyone cooperated to attack the monster relentlessly. Yet, the monster was as resilient as a leech, while Maple's health had turned red. Worried for her friend, Sally rushed in with half health to throw Maple a healing potion. With a full health bar, Maple's vigor returned, stronger than ever. Seeing her attitude, Mei knew they only needed to provide cover while the boss handled the rest. With a determined gaze, Maple and Syrup unleashed a massive attack that pierced the monster's body, causing it to collapse and shatter. The free-falling Maple was safely caught by her best friend below. Finally, they successfully defeated the developer's trump card and earned additional medals. The event timer also ran out. As promised, those who survived until the end received 5 extra medals. Collecting 10 medals allowed them to exchange for any desired equipment or skill. Meanwhile, the game developers were utterly shocked that their meticulously nurtured pet was destroyed like that. Moreover, they had to give away a ton of medals to the players, taking a huge loss. They had to bitterly learn from this, adjusting the 8th floor's hunting grounds, monster strength, and boss mechanics, meaning more overtime days awaited. Suddenly, the board director reassured everyone that their greatest success was the players' happiness. That was the result of their hard work, and that was the developers' happiness too. Therefore, no matter how much they were beaten down, they would always stand up to face challenges. This was the time they needed to strive, show their strength, and work even more overtime. The director also promised to petition management for increased overtime pay. Hearing about money, everyone's eyes lit up. It was truly the life of selling oneself to capitalism. Thus, the exciting adventure of Kaide and her best friend Risa in the virtual reality game world of Season 2 officially concluded. If you loved this video, do not forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more motivation. We promise to bring countless more captivating anime masterpieces.